Under this reductionist paradigm, the heart is just a hydraulic pressure pump. Under this view, our veins are mere inert pipes carrying dense fluids, but it is enough to observe the profound nature of reality to understand that this mechanistic vision is a limiting the expansion of galaxies. Your vascular system is a perfect geometric map, a masterpiece of cosmic architecture. If you could extend the immense network of your arteries, veins, and capillaries, you would see how they faithfully mimic roots. They mimic the roots of an ancient oak. Chapter 1. Living Fractals, the Vascular Tree and the Intelligence of Space. If you could, for a moment, strip your body of skin, muscles, bones and organs, and leave only the network that transports your blood, you would not see the silhouette of a human being. You would see with absolute clarity the image of an immense red and blue tree beating in space. You would see an inverted forest with a thick trunk in the center and millions of branches extending toward the periphery, becoming increasingly fine until they vanish into a microscopic mist. This vascular tree is not an anatomical coincidence. It is the signature of the universe imprinted on your biology. It is palpable proof that conscious matter does not organize by chance, but obeys mathematical laws of unfathomable beauty and efficiency. In this first chapter, we will unravel the intelligence of the space that dwells within you. We will explore how the sacred geometry of living fractals solves nature's greatest engineering problem. We will see how, when we allow stress to distort this design, we literally collapse the architecture of our own vitality. 1. The law of branching, the universal language of energy. To understand blood, we must first understand the vessel that contains it. The human circulatory system is a marvel of cellular topography. Composed of arteries, veins, and tiny capillaries, this network is not built using straight pipes or mechanical conduits, but through the principle of fractal branching. Observe the nature around you. When lightning tears through the night sky in the middle of a storm, it does not fall in a perfect straight line. It bifurcates, creating jagged paths and subdivisions that seek the path of least electrical resistance. When a river descends from a mountain and approaches the ocean, it does not flow. It does not end as a solid block of water, but opens into a majestic delta, branching into thousands of streams that caress the earth. If you pull an ancient oak from the ground, its roots will show you an exact mirror of its upper branches, extending in iterative patterns to absorb the maximum amount of water and minerals. Lightning, the river, the oak, and your veins speak exactly the same electromagnetic and spatial language. This is the law of branching. The universe uses this repetitive pattern because it is the most efficient method ever conceived to distribute energy from a central point toward an immense periphery. It minimizes the expenditure of work and friction. You are not an observer separate from nature. You are nature itself, fractalized and internalized. The same mathematical patterns that shape galaxies sculpt the interior of your thighs, your chest, and your brain. When the heart pumps blood rich in oxygen and biophotons, it exits through the aorta, the main trunk. From there, the aorta divides into main arteries, which in turn divide into arterioles, and these subdivide millions of times until they become capillaries, vessels so microscopic that red blood cells must deform and travel in single file to pass through them. This self-similarity at different scales is the exact mathematical definition of a fractal. From the Feng dimension, which studies the correct arrangement and harmonic flow of energy in space, your vascular system is the ultimate exponent of a perfectly ordered sacred space. There are no right angles, there are no factory blocks. There are only fluid curves and bifurcations calculated so that liquid light reaches every atom of your being without wasting a single gram of effort. 2. Maximizing the infinite in a finite space. Here we face an astonishing spatial paradox. The adult human body houses approximately 37 trillion cells. Each of these cells breathes, eats, excretes waste, and requires an uninterrupted supply of plasma, oxygen, and vibrational information. To keep this vast cellular civilization alive, blood cannot flow far from them. Each cell must be at a maximum distance of 2 to 3 cells from a blood vessel. If we took the entire network of arteries, veins, and capillaries of a single human being and laid them out in a straight line, they would reach a length of nearly 100,000 kilometers. That is enough to go around the Earth's equator 2.5 times. How is it physically possible to pack 100,000 kilometers of conduits inside the finite and closed space of a human body that on average measures less than 2 meters in height? The answer is the fractal dimension. In classical Euclidean geometry, we are used to thinking in integer dimensions. A line is one-dimensional, 1D, a flat surface is two-dimensional, 2D, and a volume is three-dimensional, 3D. However, fractals exist in fractional dimensions. Mathematically, the fractal dimension d dollars of a self-similar structure is described by the relationship between the number of internal copies (nulls) and the scale factor (sidonun). Fract. By using fractal design, the human circulatory system manages to behave almost like a four-dimensional spatial structure in terms of metabolic efficiency. It folds over itself so many times and branches with such precision that it creates a colossal exchange surface area. The total area is equivalent to 1 or 2 tennis courts. All of this is compressed within the volume of your rib cage and your extremities. The law of Murray and the optimization of Chi. This branching is not chaotic. It obeys a biophysical principle discovered in the 1920s known as Murray's law. This law postulates that the vascular network branches in a way that minimizes the work required by the heart to pump blood, while simultaneously minimizing the total volume of blood needed in the system. In terms of fluid dynamics, Murray's law is expressed through an elegant mathematical equation that relates the radius of the parent blood vessel, rp$, to the radii of the daughter vessels, r$ and r$, rp3 The cube of the radius of the original vessel is exactly equal to the sum of the cubes. This is not a simple equation. It is the poetry of conscious matter. It is the universe ensuring that the volume of plasma and hydraulic resistance are in such a perfect balance that vital energy, chi or prana, flows without friction. When this geometry operates in its optimal state, you experience overwhelming mental clarity. You feel effortless digestion, perfectly regulated body temperature, and a sense of deep grounding. Your inner space is organized in such a way that it allows the infinite, the energy of the quantum field, to penetrate and nourish your finite container. Fractal vasoconstriction, the collapse of inner space. If fractal design is the geometric perfection of life, why do we fall ill? Why do we experience chronic fatigue, systemic inflammation, brain fog, and cold extremities? Because the vascular tree is not a marble sculpture. It is a living, dynamic tissue, exquisitely sensitive to the emotional and psychological environment. Arteries and capillaries are wrapped in smooth muscles and governed by the autonomic nervous system. They are a screen where your state of consciousness is projected in real time. This is where biology and somatic psychology collide. When we perceive a threat, whether a real predator or a chronic financial stress, our sympathetic nervous system activates. Instinctively, the body enters fight or flight mode. The first biological order of the stress response is short-term survival, not long-term nutrition. To prepare the body to run or fight, the brain orders peripheral vasoconstriction. Millions of tiny capillaries that make up the leaves and the finest branches of your fractal vascular tree close abruptly. The smooth muscle contracts and squeezes blood from the skin, digestive tract, reproductive organs, and the prefrontal cortex, the center of higher thought. All that liquid light is hijacked and redirected toward the heart, lungs, and the large muscles of the thighs and arms. In a real emergency situation lasting 10 minutes, this saves lives. But the modern human lives in a state of perpetual psychological stress. Our nervous system perceives emails or news as deadly threats. As a result, we live in a state of chronic fractal vasoconstriction. Our majestic inner tree is permanently withered at its edges. Trauma is not just a painful psychological memory, it is an architectural collapse. It is the loss of geometric space within your own body. Ghost zones and disconnection. When fractal capillaries contract day after day, week after week, entire areas of your cellular matrix are deprived of vital flow. Without the supply of fresh blood, these zones are left without oxygen, without structured water, and without the photonic nutrition we will address in the next chapters. They become cellular ghost towns. Lactic acid and metabolic waste accumulate because the return veins are blocked by fascial tension. Inflammation becomes the base state of these tissues. Joints begin to ache, vital organs reduce their function, and the immune system becomes clumsy and autoimmune. But the most serious consequence of this spatial collapse is spiritual disconnection. When blood withdraws from the periphery of your body, you literally stop feeling your boundary with the universe. Skin and superficial tissues lose their perceptive sharpness. You feel trapped inside your own head, dense, heavy, and isolated. By strangling the fractal edge of your biology, you have closed the doors through which conscious matter dialogues with the outside world. You have broken the main rule of internal Feng Shui. You have allowed the disorder of fear to stagnate the fluidity of your sacred space. Reclaiming geometry, the watering of consciousness. Understanding fractal vasoconstriction is the first step toward dismantling the illusion that your body is broken. It is not broken. It is responding in a geometrically perfect way to the danger signal your mind is emitting. Therefore, the secret map of healing is not found in forcing the body to change from the outside. It is found in altering the electromagnetic signal so that the tree expands its branches naturally again. How do we water this dehydrated internal forest? How do we reopen the 100,000 kilometers of collapsed fractals? 1. Parasympathetic rescue, somatic safety. The muscles of your capillaries will only relax when the primitive brain is convinced you are safe. This is not achieved with mental affirmations but with somatic language. Deep, rhythmic diaphragmatic breathing, the decoding breath, sends a mechanical wave that stimulates the vagus nerve. 2. Omnidirectional movement. In nature, a tree that does not move with the wind becomes brittle and dies. Linear, repetitive exercise does little to release twists in the fractal network. The body requires spiral movement, helical turns, expansive stretches, and postures that open the ribcage and hips. This squeezes stagnant capillaries like a sponge. 3. Thermal self-regulation. Heat is a universal fractal dilator. Exposing the body to natural infrared sunlight, saunas, or therapeutic heat not only raises the temperature, but forces the capillary network of the skin to open to its maximum geometric capacity to release excess heat. In doing so, the tree regains its original volume. Chapter 2. The torus, the heart as a center of magnetic gravity. To delve into the true nature of your healing secret map, we must pause at the exact center of your chest. Throughout the centuries, humanity has placed the weight of every romantic, spiritual, and poetic metaphor imaginable upon the heart. However, the Industrial Revolution imposed a mechanistic view of the world. Science stripped the heart of its mysticism and reduced it to the crudest and most limiting analogy possible: a hydraulic pump. We were taught that this 300-gram organ, the size of a closed fist, is a machine of brute pressure, a mechanical valve designed to squeeze a viscous fluid through 100,000 kilometers of vessels. It was said to push through microscopic capillaries and fascial resistance day and night without stopping for 80 years. But from the perspective of fluid physics and sacred geometry, this premise is a mathematical impossibility. If the heart were a simple mechanical pressure pump, it would need the size and strength of an industrial motor. It would need that power to push blood through the immense fractal network we explored in the previous chapter. The friction generated by such pressure would destroy delicate capillaries and boil the blood. The human body, as the pinnacle of conscious matter, does not operate under brute force. It operates under geometric resonance. The heart does not push the blood. The heart is a vortex, a master oscillator, and above all, the center of magnetic gravity of your own inner universe. In this chapter, we will dismantle the illusion of the mechanical pump to reveal the true geometric architecture of your vital center, the torus. We will discover how it works. We will see how your electromagnetic field organizes the space around you, and how spiritual latency is not an ethereal concept, but the physical and measurable collapse of your cardiac geometry. 1. The great biological falsehood, beyond the mechanical pump. To understand the magnitude of your heart's engineering, we must observe how energy flows in the natural universe. In nature, the movement that generates and sustains life is never straight, nor is it pushed by force. The water of a river does not flow in a straight line. It moves by creating eddies and spirals. The wind does not blow in square blocks. It forms cyclones and enveloping breezes. Austrian biologist and philosopher Victor Schauberger demonstrated that nature uses vortex motion, inward spiral, to clean, energize, and cool fluids. This centripetal movement generates what he called implosion, a type of force that creates fluidity. Instead of generating heat and resistance, like explosion or mechanical pressure, it generates suction and a structured electromagnetic field. The human heart uses this exact same principle of implosion. When deoxygenated blood returns to the heart from the far reaches of the body, it is not sucked passively by an empty pump. The blood arrives with its own momentum, its own spiral twist inherited from its journey through the veins. The heart receives this whirlpool, folds it upon itself, increases its speed through its internal geometry, and fires it back into the aorta in a powerful perfect vortex. This is the masterwork of biological engineering. The heart does not pump the blood pumps the heart. The organ is simply the geometric resonance chamber where the vital flow is recalibrated, magnetized, and recovers its golden spin. This revelation completely changes the rules of your health. If your vascular system is stiff from stress, trauma, and inflammation, if fractal vasoconstriction occurs, the blood loses its inertia. When it reaches the heart without its natural spin, the heart is forced to act as a mechanical pump to compensate for the lack of fluidity. This unnatural effort is what generates hypertension, valve wear, and eventually heart failure. Your heart does not get sick. It does not sicken from pumping too much. It sickens because the spatial dimension of your blood vessels has lost the harmony that allows friction-free flow. 2. The myocardial band, the mystery of the double helix. The definitive proof that the heart is a vortex generator and not a simple muscular box was revealed by the brilliant Spanish cardiologist Francisco Torrent Guasp. Until his discoveries, classical anatomy drew the heart as a mass of overlapping muscles without a clear order. Torrent Gasp discovered the truth of its form. He found that the entire heart is, in reality, a single uninterrupted muscular band. If you take this band and unroll it, it is flat. But in the embryonic development of conscious matter, this single band folds upon itself, twists into an 8, and creates a double helix structure, strikingly similar to our DNA chain. When your heart beats, it does not squeeze by bringing its walls together like crushing a plastic bottle. Due to its helical structure, the heart twists. It functions exactly like wringing a wet towel. The base rotates in one direction and the apex in the opposite direction. This twist creates a specific kinetic effect. This twisting movement does not generate pressure that pushes the blood forward chaotically. It generates a whirlpool, a perfect vortex that implodes the blood plasma, giving it the rotation and inertia necessary to glide through your arterial tree without generating friction on the walls. The heart is a fluid dynamics master. See? The torus, architecture of the infinite. All this mechanics of vortices and helical torsion has a purpose far beyond the simple distribution of oxygen. The movement of blood charged with ions and iron through the heart's vortex generates electricity. And where there is an electric current, an electromagnetic field is inevitably generated. Here we enter the core of sacred geometry. The magnetic field generated by your heart is not an amorphous cloud of energy. It takes the most efficient, sustainable, and sacred geometric shape in the universe, the torus. Visualize a donut or an apple without its core. The torus is a three-dimensional surface of revolution. Energy flows through the central axis, your spine and chest, exits through the top, curves downward around the outside, and re-enters through the bottom pole, creating an infinite and self-sustaining loop. In pure mathematics and topology, the torus is fundamental because it can sustain multiple frequencies without interference. The volume V dollars of a solid torus is given by the geometric formula. Don vi du npi r2, 2, hpi r, iumba, du r, ilpi du, r, il2 than du, where rhoudels is the radius of the circular tube, and rhoudels is the distance from the center of the tube to the center of the torus. This equation shows how an area expands and rotates around an invisible axis. It creates a contained and dynamic space. The universe uses toroidal geometry at all scales because it is the only topological design capable of maintaining energetic stability in a constantly changing environment. The Earth's magnetic field protecting us from solar radiation is an immense torus. Entire galaxies sustain their stellar rotation within massive toroidal fields. At the quantum scale, the very structure of the electromagnetic vacuum is organized in toroidal dynamics. And right in the center of your chest, your heart sustains the same geometric design as a galaxy. It is a cosmic resonator. The electromagnetic field of the human heart is the most powerful in the entire organism. Its electrical component is approximately 60 times greater in amplitude than that of the brain, and its magnetic field is up to 5,000 times stronger. This toroidal field can be measured several meters outside your physical body. You do not end at your skin. Your conscious matter is anchored to your physical form, but your center of magnetic gravity extends throughout the room you are in, interacting with the environment, scanning frequencies, and quantumly entwining with the toroidal fields of people, plants, and animals around you. 4. The internal Feng dimension, the magnetic center of gravity. If we apply the principles of space harmonization to your inner biology, the heart is the compass, the center of gravity that dictates order or chaos for the entire system. The cardiac torus acts as the carrier wave of your vibrational identity. As blood passes through the heart's vortex, it is magnetized. It receives the frequency that this field is holding. Every red blood cell, with its central iron atom, receives the geometric imprint of your emotions, beliefs, and stress level at that precise millisecond. Then, the blood travels to the 37 trillion cells of your body, delivering the news of the heart. When you experience fear, chronic anger, resentment, or trauma, your nervous system enters survival mode. The rotation of your toroidal field becomes unstable. Instead of a perfect fluid donut, your electromagnetic field becomes deformed, irregular, and asymmetrical. The electrical waves of the EKG become erratic. In this state, the heart prints a danger signal on the structured water of your plasma. The blood carries this broken geometry to your cells, activating inflammation, shutting down the immune system, and initiating spiritual latency. Your internal space fills with clutter, with electromagnetic static and dissonance. When you experience deep gratitude, compassion, love, and safety, you enter a clinical state called cardiac coherence. The double helix of the heart twists with grace. The magnetic torus stabilizes, expands, and adopts impeccable symmetry. In this state, blood is magnetized with frequencies of supreme order. Cells receive the growth and repair signal. Epigenetics responds by turning off inflammation genes and turning on longevity genes. Your heart, as a magnetic center of gravity, does not discriminate. It simply amplifies and transmits to your veins the geometry of your predominant state of consciousness. 5. The collapse of the torus, authentic spiritual latency. We have been educated to believe that personal growth or spiritual connection occurs only in the brain, through the accumulation of knowledge or intellectual understanding. But the brain is a linear data processor. It is not the generator of the gravitational field of your reality. It is a secondary station. True spiritual latency is not intellectual ignorance. It is the geometric collapse of your heart's torus. When we live disconnected from our bodies, rooted in mental anxieties and numbed by hyperstimulation, energy in our nervous system migrates toward the head. Our center of magnetic gravity rises. It rises artificially toward the analytical mind, leaving the heart devoid of voltage. The torus shrinks. It becomes dense and weak. In this state of collapse, you lose the ability to feel the subtleties of your environment. You become a prey to emotional reactivity. Your body feels heavy and mechanical. And what is more critical for your physiology? Without a strong torus to magnetize the vital flow, the blood loses its spiral inertia, forcing the physical heart to work 3 times harder to pump it mechanically through arteries that are calcifying from stress. This is the physiological cost of disconnection. Awakening from spiritual latency requires descending from mental exile and returning to the chest. It demands restoring the diameter, power, and sacred symmetry of the most powerful transmitting station creation has granted you. It is about returning to the 0 point of your biological field. 6. Somatic practices of magnetic alignment. Restoring the geometry of the cardiac torus and the vortex movement of your blood is not an unreachable esoteric exercise. It is pure applied biophysics. When you consciously alter the mechanics of your body and your breath, you alter the mathematics of your magnetic field. This is the core of healing. Below, we will explore the somatic technologies designed to restart your central oscillator. A. Toroidal coherence breathing. As we saw, heart rhythm is subordinate to the breathing pattern. Cardiac coherence is the mathematical alignment between breathing rate and heartbeat, maximizing heart rate variability, HRV. The practice. Sit with your spine aligned. Close your eyes and focus on the center of the chest. Imagine your breath entering and exiting directly through your heart. Inhale slowly and silently for 5 or 6 seconds. Exhale with the same slowness for 5 or 6 seconds without pauses. The geometry. This exact rhythm, about 5.5 to 6 breaths per minute, is the resonance frequency of the human cardiovascular system. Within 3 to 5 minutes, this mechanical pattern takes control from the stress system. Your collapsed toroidal field begins to expand, regaining its perfect donut symmetry. B. Helical torso twist, vortex clearing. If the physical heart is a band twisted in a double helix, fascial stagnation in the chest and mid-back immobilizes this mechanical dance. The practice. Stand with feet rooted at shoulder width. Let your arms hang relaxed. Begin to rotate your central axis, the spine, left and right, letting your arms hit your sides and lower back like loose ropes. With each rotation, deepen the twist looking over your shoulder. Do this for 3 to 5 minutes. The geometry. You are mimicking natural vortex movement at a macroscopic level. This mechanical torsion releases the muscular armor of the rib cage, decompresses the vagus nerve, and physically squeezes out stagnant blood from organs, allowing a renewed flow back to the heart. It is a hydraulic restart. C. Charge generation through emotional gratitude. The heart's electromagnetic field is directly proportional to the quality of the emotion you feel. Gratitude and appreciation are not social conventions, they are high-octane vibrational states. The practice. Once in the coherence breathing state, practice A, bring to mind an image, person or memory that generates a genuine feeling of gratitude or love. Do not think it. Feel it in your ribcage. Let that warm sensation expand from your chest outward. The geometry. Elevated emotion is the torus's fuel. When you combine high emotional frequency with clear intention, your cells' biophotons synchronize. Your magnetic field expands dramatically, sending a geometric shockwave through your plasma that rewrites epigenetics and disarms fear programs. 7. The marriage between space and heartbeat. Your heart is not a spare part that wears out and must be pushed to the limit. It is the throne room of your conscious matter. Understanding your heart as the generator of your toroidal field is to take radical responsibility for the energy you introduce into the world. It is the core of sovereignty. It doesn't matter how pure the water you drink is or how organic your food is. If the magnetic center of gravity of your internal dimension is collapsed by resentment and fear, every drop of blood passing through your cardiac vortex will be programmed with chaos and entropy. Healing begins in the field. Imagine for a moment what would happen if you learned to inhabit the center of your torus permanently. You would walk through the world not as a dense being at the mercy of circumstances, but as a pulsing, living transmission antenna. By stabilizing your internal geometry, your presence becomes an ordering agent. Those who approach you would feel the effect of your magnetic coherence. Your blood, spinning in its perfect spiral of implosion, would find no resistance, transporting vital light without friction, banishing the fog and fatigue of your physical avatar forever. You become a beacon of harmonic frequency. We have understood that the vascular tree is the fractal labyrinth, and the heart is the electromagnetic vortex that governs it. But the intelligence of the universe does not stop at forms. It also writes its signature in times and rhythms. It is a musical symphony unfolding within your very cells. For this torus to maintain its infinite perfection, it needs to beat following a very specific musical score, a mathematics that ancient architects and Renaissance geniuses hid in plain sight, and that is happening right now between the systole and diastole of your chest. It is the rhythm of creation. Chapter 3. The Golden Pulse, the Mathematics of Resilience. In our journey through quantum anatomy, we have explored the spatial dimension of our bodies. We saw how blood vessels unfold in majestic living fractals and how the physical heart is not a brute force machine, but a toroidal oscillator that organizes the magnetic space around us. However, the universe is not composed solely of space. It is indissolubly woven with the thread of time. In human biology, time is not measured by quartz clocks or the Earth's rotation, but by the incessant, intimate, and sacred rhythm that thunders in the center of your chest. This chapter takes us into the temporal dimension of your internal topography. We will explore the hidden frequency. We will discover that the pulse of life is not arbitrary. It is governed by a primordial mathematical code, a divine signature that nature uses to optimize energy, create beauty, and ensure survival, the golden ratio. When the conscious matter of your body aligns with this golden pulse, you experience maximum resilience. But when trauma and fear hijack your nervous system, this harmonic code breaks, turning your heart into a rigid metronome that locks you in a state of perpetual survival. Join me in deciphering the mathematics of your resilience and discovering how to give the music of creation back to your vital flow. 1. The code of beauty, the golden ratio in the chest. From the ancient mystery schools of Pythagoras to contemporary quantum physics laboratories, there is a fascinating consensus. The universe has a favorite number. It is an irrational mathematical constant that dictates the proportions of everything we consider inherently beautiful, efficient, and harmonic. Phi, EF. Mathematically, the golden ratio is defined by an equation describing a relationship of perfect asymmetry, where the smaller part is to the larger part exactly what the larger part is to the whole. Chap Phi, Nfrac 1 plus SQRT approx $1.618. If you observe nature, this number is omnipresent. It dictates the logarithmic spiral of a nautilus shell, the exact distribution of seeds in a sunflower, the curvature of hurricanes, the proportions of Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and the spiral arms of the Milky Way. Nature uses 1.618 to package information and energy. It is the geometric fingerprint of life itself. And what happens in the center of your chest? Cutting-edge cardiology has begun to overlay the mathematics of beauty onto the human electrocardiogram, ECG, with results that defy the purely mechanistic view of the body. A heartbeat consists of two fundamental phases. The phases are systole, contraction to expel blood, and diastole, relaxation to refill. In a vibrant human in a state of emotional coherence, the temporal relationship between systole and diastole is not 1.1. It is asymmetrical. In fact, the duration of diastole divided by systole tends to closely approach 1.618. Your heart, in its state of grace, contracts and relaxes following the exact same mathematical proportion that spins galaxies. Furthermore, if we analyze individual electrical waves, P, Q, R, S, and T waves, the intervals of voltage and time in a balanced system trace the Fibonacci sequences, the integer manifestation of phi. This means the electricity igniting your conscious matter is a geometric symphony. When your heart beats under this golden pulse, the toroidal field it generates reaches maximum expansion and symmetry, bathing every cell in a frequency of absolute order. This is the biological foundation of internal harmony. 2. Heart rate variability, HRV, the music of the nervous system. If the golden ratio is the code of a single beat, how do beats behave together over time? To answer this, we must tear down one of the largest and most harmful medical myths, the belief that a healthy heart beats like a perfect metronome. If your resting heart rate is 60 BPM, logic assumes exactly 1 second between beats. However, if your heart beats with this mechanical and robotic precision, you are, from a biological standpoint, on the verge of serious illness or death. Vibrant health is not synonymous with static regularity. It is synonymous with adaptability. A resilient heart presents a rhythm that fluctuates from 1 millisecond to another. The space between beats might be 0.85s, then 1.12s, then 0.95s. This fluctuation is known as heart rate variability, HRV. Your heart is the main stage for the dance between the two branches of your autonomic nervous system. The sympathetic system is the accelerator, responding to stress, danger, and action. The parasympathetic system is the brake, governed by the vagus nerve, responding to safety, relaxation, and digestion. In high resilience, both are in fluid communication. When inhaling, the sympathetic slightly accelerates the heart. When exhaling, the vagus nerve applies the brake and slows it down. This constant tug-of-war creates high variability, high HRV. High HRV is the music of flexibility. It is the geometric signature of a nervous system scanning the environment and adapting in microseconds. From the Feng dimension, high HRV indicates your internal space is clear and receptive. Energy finds no obstacles. 3. Trauma and the metronome of fear. What happens when the fractal dimension withers due to perceived threat and chronic fear takes over our biology? The delicate balance of HRV collapses. When we experience a traumatic event we cannot process somatically or live in perpetual stress, the foot stays stuck on the accelerator, the sympathetic system. The vagus nerve, overwhelmed, withdraws. Communication between heart and brain becomes one-way and dominated by alarm. In this state, the heart loses its ability to fluctuate harmonically. It becomes rigid. The distance between beats homogenizes. The golden pulse vanishes, and the heart becomes a metronome of fear. Low HRV is the physical manifestation of a consciousness trapped in time. A rigid heart cannot interact with the subtle fluctuations of the Earth's electromagnetic field, Schumann resonance. At the cellular level, when the pulse loses the golden ratio, the pressure wave traveling through your veins becomes aggressive. Instead of a spiral movement that glides blood smoothly, the blood is hit mechanically, creating micro-lesions in arterial walls, attracting cholesterol to patch the damage, and initiating chronic inflammation. Psychologically, low HRV is the definition of mental rigidity. You become unable to see different perspectives. 4. The internal arranger, producing the biological symphony. If we view the body as a cosmic recording studio, the heart is the master clock. All other frequencies, alpha, beta, and theta brainwaves, the intestinal peristaltic rhythm, the spinal fluid cleaning cycle, synchronize or entrain to the frequency dictated by the heart through a phenomenon called entrainment. In music, a disordered arrangement where bass, percussion, and melody are out of time generates dissonance. Similarly, when your master clock emits a rigid pulse of survival, all peripheral systems enter dissonance. Your digestive system blocks, and your immune system might attack your own cells. But this heart power works in both directions. The heart is not a victim of your environment. It is an adaptable synthesizer. If you can consciously alter the master pulse, all other biological tracks in your body will have no choice but to tune and synchronize with the new harmonic score. By recovering the golden pulse, you become the arranger of your own biology. The tools to reprogram this internal metronome are built into your hardware from the day you were born. It is a matter of reclaiming the baton and directing the flow of your internal energy with conscious intent. Hacking the rhythm somatic resilience technologies. Returning your heart to its sacred variability and golden ratio does not require drugs. It requires practice, presence, and the mathematical understanding of how breath and focus alter the electrical charge of the vagus nerve. These are the somatic technologies designed to restart your chest's temporal geometry. A resonance breathing, the 0.1 Hz hack. There is a specific breathing frequency that mathematically forces your heart, brain, and vascular system into almost instantaneous coherence, the resonance frequency, occurring at 0.1 Hz, Hz. 0.1 Hz equals a 10-second cycle. This means performing exactly 6 full breaths per minute. The practice. Sit with a straight back. Inhale slowly and deeply through the nose for 5 seconds, expanding the diaphragm in 3D. Exhale gently through the nose or pursed lips for the next 5 seconds. No holding at the ends. A continuous circular flow of 10 seconds per cycle. The quantum effect. By breathing at this rhythm, you synchronize heart rate waves with blood pressure waves and your respiratory rhythm. You create a standing wave of biological power. The stress metronome breaks immediately, and HRV shoots to its maximum amplitude, forcing the heart to regain its golden dance. B. Emotional modulation as frequency engineering. Conscious matter responds to the observer's state. Emotions are vibrational signatures that physically alter the structured water of your plasma. Frustration and anxiety produce irregular frequencies, geometric chaos. Gratitude and awe produce smooth, rhythmic, and highly structured sine waves. The practice. It is not enough to think positive, you must feel the frequency. Spend 3 minutes a day bringing to mind something you feel unconditional reverence for. Inhale that sensation directly through the center of your chest. This creates the feeling of coherence within the toroidal field. The quantum effect. By holding this emotional frequency for at least 90 seconds, you override cortisol chemistry and stimulate DHEA, vitality hormone release. Your toroidal field expands, and the geometric music of your nervous system recovers its brilliance and flexibility. See sound immersion and telluric tuning. Your body, as an antenna made mostly of structured water and piezoelectric fascial tissue, responds to environmental magnetism. If you live immersed in Wi-Fi and urban noise, your heart struggles. It needs harmonic references. Use therapeutic sound frequencies like solfeggio tones or isochronic tones. The practice. Parallelly, reconnect your magnetic field, earthing, by walking barefoot on the earth, sand, or touching seawater. Direct contact with the earth allows you to discharge electromagnetic static from your nervous system and tune your pulse to the Schumann resonance, 783 Hz. The quantum effect. You provide your heart with a planetary tuning fork to retune its instrument and exit the dissonance of trauma. By aligning with the Earth's pulse, you anchor your internal geometry to the source, allowing the golden ratio to naturally emerge from the center of your being. Chapter 4. Spiral Blood, the Vortex as the Engine of Life. The universe detests the straight line. If you observe the natural world and the cosmos closely, you will realize that the straight line is a purely human invention, an imposition of the analytical mind and the Industrial Revolution to try to square an environment that is intrinsically curved, fluid, and dynamic. No planet orbits in a straight line, no tree grows in a perfect block, no river crosses a valley without curving. However, when mechanistic medicine imagined the interior of the human body, it made the grave mistake of applying the logic of industrial plumbing to quantum biology. They convinced us of a linear flow. They told us our veins and arteries were simple PVC pipes and that blood traveled through them like a train on its rails, straight, flat, and linear. In this 4th chapter, we are going to dismantle this illusion. We will discover that blood, that liquid crystal carrier of memory and oxygen, does not flow. It spins. It travels through your body, forming microscopic tornadoes, vortices of liquid light that protect your cells, generate magnetic fields, and sustain the architecture of your conscious matter. Understanding the dynamics of the spiral is not just a curious biological fact. It is the master key to understanding longevity. 1. The myth of the straight line and the dynamics of chaos. To understand the genius of your circulatory system, we must first understand the fundamental problem nature had to solve. In classical fluid physics, when you push a liquid through a straight tube, you face a destructive force, friction. If the fluid travels linearly, the liquid touching the walls slows down massively. This difference in speeds requires the pump to work harder to maintain the flow. If you increase the pressure too much, the linear flow collapses and becomes turbulent flow, a chaos of disordered eddies that crash against the walls, generating heat, damage, and massive energy loss. This is the death of efficiency. If your heart pushed blood in a straight line, the friction would be so devastating that it would destroy delicate red blood cells and tear the inner lining of your blood vessels in weeks. How does nature solve this mathematical paradox? By abandoning the straight line and embracing rotation. Instead of traveling parallel to the artery walls, the blood advances by spinning on its own axis, creating a spiral or helical vortex. In the physics of fluid dynamics, the tendency of a fluid to rotate is described by vorticity, a vector quantity defined as the curl of the velocity field. The mathematical genius of vorticity in your blood is that it creates a tube within a tube effect. Peripheral blood spins slowly, creating a protective layer, while blood in the center spins at an amazing speed. Barely touching the physical walls of the artery, blood wraps itself in its own inertia. It travels on fluid bearings, almost completely eliminating friction. The spiral is the universe's answer to friction. It is the way the infinite slides through the finite without destroying it. This vortex is the signature of a biological system operating at maximum quantum efficiency. 2. Implosion versus explosion, the engine of life. To deepen the science of spiral blood, we must invoke the work of the Austrian genius Victor Schauberger. He observed that human technology was based on explosion, combustion engines, pressure, heat, expansion, a process that always generates resistance, destruction, and entropy. Nature, however, uses implosion. When the water of a natural river encounters an obstacle, it does not push it with brute force. It forms a vortex. The vortex is a centripetal movement, inward. Instead of generating heat and resistance, implosion generates cooling, suction, order, and molecular structuring. This is the secret of life. Schauberger observed how trout could remain motionless in the middle of a raging mountain torrent. He discovered that the trout instinctively seeks the center of an aqueous vortex, where the force of implosion creates an area of zero resistance and forward thrust. Your red blood cells are the trout in your blood. When the heart, which is a spiral-shaped muscle band, contracts, it does not push the blood, it implodes it. It prints a massive helical spin on it. As blood travels down the vascular tree, it maintains this tornado movement. Red blood cells ride in the center of the vortex, suspended in structured plasma. The vortex is the engine of life because it is self-sustaining. Spiral blood propagates itself. This is why your heart does not need the strength of an industrial motor. It only needs to set the golden rhythm so that the liquid tornado maintains its rotation. It is a masterpiece of energy conservation. From DNA to capillary, the fractal signature. Sacred geometry never operates in isolation. It is fractal, meaning it repeats the same pattern at all scales. The spiral we observe in the macro current of your bloodstream is an exact reflection of the microscopic architecture that composes you. It is a universal design principle. At the micro scale, the information that dictates your biological existence is stored in the DNA molecule. What shape does DNA have? A double helix, a twisted spiral. At the mesoscale, your physical heart is built by the myocardial band that folds into a double helix, a twisted spiral. At the macro scale, the stream of blood connecting the code with the engine flows in an uninterrupted helical vortex, a moving spiral. It is not an anatomical coincidence. It is the Feng dimension of the body, manifesting with absolute coherence. Matter organizes in spirals to bridge energy and spirit. When you understand that you are a spiral of information spinning within another spiral, the concept of disease changes. Disease is the loss of rotation. It is the moment the spiral slows down, the vortex collapses, and geometric chaos, entropy, takes control of your biology. 4. The electromagnetic vortex and the internal Faraday effect. The helical movement of blood has a quantum purpose far beyond hydrodynamics. Blood is not pure water. It is a highly conductive fluid rich in electrolytes and iron. In classical physics, Faraday's law of induction states that when a conductor moves through a magnetic field, an electric current is generated. Your bloodstream is literally a liquid dynamo. By spinning in tight spirals, the fluid friction of electrolytes and iron generates microelectric currents. Vortex blood creates its own localized electromagnetic field as it advances. This peripheral magnetic field assists the massive torus generated by the heart and fulfills a crucial protective function. The negative electromagnetic charge generated by the spin of the blood pushes red blood cells apart, like charges repel. This is known as the zeta potential. As long as the vortex stays strong, the zeta potential is high and the blood is thin and perfect. Liquid light flows without obstacles, transporting prana and biophotons with 100% efficiency. This is the electromagnetic shielding that prevents the blood from clumping and stagnating. The friction of stress when geometry breaks. Here we reach the hidden root of modern pathologies. What happens when we live in spiritual latency, consumed by chronic fear and somatic disconnection? Stress activates the sympathetic system, forcing blood vessels to contract. The consequence of this spatial collapse is catastrophic for fluid dynamics. As the artery contracts and becomes rigid from stress hormones, the helical vortex of the blood crashes against hard, inflexible walls. The spiral breaks. The harmonic and implosive flow collapses and becomes turbulent flow. When blood loses its spiral rotation, relentless laws of physics take over. There is a loss of the zeta potential. When the magnetic dynamo stops, red blood cells lose their negative charge. They begin to stick together like stacked coins, rouleau formation. Blood becomes thick and muddy. This turbulent flow lashes the artery walls, tearing the delicate endothelial lining. To prevent you from bleeding internally, the liver sends cholesterol and calcium to patch the wounds. Over time, these patches form plaques. Medicine blames cholesterol for heart attacks, but cholesterol is just the firefighter. The real culprit is the loss of the vortex and the broken geometry. 6. The Feng dimension, restoring the engine of life. If the loss of the spiral drags us toward entropy, how do we rewrite the map? How do we give vorticity back to our liquid light? The human body is plastic and responds immediately to geometric conditions. Restoring the vortex requires aligning our internal topography using movement and intention. We cannot manipulate blood directly, but we can manipulate the vessel that contains it. Here are 3 technologies to invoke the vortex power. A. Somatic helical movement. Linear exercise does little for fluid dynamics. To induce a vortex in a tube, you must twist the tube. Incorporate practices like Qigong or Tai Chi. When stretching, do not just bend, twist. Imagine your body is a wet towel you are gently wringing out. When you rotate your spine and ribcage, you are twisting the arterial conduits. This mechanically forces the blood to spin, restarting the dynamo. B. Vortical hydration. Stagnant water from a tap lacks the inertia to maintain the vortex. Before drinking water, stir it with a wooden spoon in a glass to form a vigorous whirlpool, a vortex, for 30 seconds. This erases the pipe's static memory and reorganizes its molecules into living water. C. Cyclonic breathing. The diaphragm is the second heart. Visualize air as 2 spirals of energy entering your nostrils and descending like a double tornado. By executing breathing as a spiral process, you send relaxation signals to the vagus nerve. The peripheral arteries dilate and the blood spins freely. 7. The physics of centripetal force. To further expand on this, we must look at how centripetal force acts as an ordering principle within the body. In a vortex, the velocity of the fluid increases as it approaches the center. This creates a gradient of pressure that literally pulls the blood through the vascular tree without the need for high pressure. In a state of health, the blood is pulled, not pushed. This centripetal pull is the biological equivalent of spiritual attraction. When our internal space is clear, our vital force is drawn naturally toward its destination. When we live in fear, we rely on centrifugal force, which scatters energy and creates pressure. By practicing spiral movements, we are training our nervous system to recognize and utilize this centripetal flow. We are teaching our biology to move toward its own center of gravity. This is the essence of Dimension Feng, creating a path for the energy to move effortlessly toward the core of our being. The more we align with this inward moving spiral, the more we conserve our vital reserves. We stop leaking energy through the friction of resistance. This is why masters of movement often possess a vitality that defies their chronological age. They have learned to ride the vortex instead of fighting the current. 8. The spiral of time and regeneration. The spiral is also the geometry of time. Just as the blood spirals through the body spirals through time. When we maintain the vorticity of our blood, we are essentially maintaining a young time signature within our cells. Entropy is a linear process, but regeneration is a cyclical spiral process. When blood flow becomes linear and turbulent, we enter the linear time of aging and decay. But when we restore the vortex, we re-enter the spiral time of the cosmos. This is why rhythmic, spiral-based practices have been associated with longevity across cultures. They keep the biological clock in a state of renewal. Consider the heart once more. Its helical contraction is a physical prayer for continuity. By synchronizing our conscious intent with this physical spin, we bridge the gap between our finite human experience and the infinite rotation of the stars. We become a part of the grand vortex of existence. This is the deeper meaning of conscious matter. It is matter that has remembered how to spin. It is matter that has escaped the prison of the straight line. As you continue to move and breathe in spirals, you are not just improving your circulation. You are realigning your soul with the fundamental rhythm of life. 9. The alchemical transmutation of fluid. In the alchemical traditions, the transformation of lead into gold was often described as a process of refining fluids through rotation. In the laboratory of your body, the lead of thick, stagnant blood is transmuted into the gold of illuminated plasma through the power of the vortex. This is not a metaphor. The physical properties of blood, its viscosity, its electrical charge, and its oxygen-carrying capacity literally change when it transitions from turbulent to helical flow. It becomes a more efficient carrier for the light of the spirit. It becomes illuminated blood. This transmutation is what allows the higher-order functions of the brain to activate. The pineal gland and the pituitary gland are nourished by this refined, high-vorticity blood. Without it, They remain in a state of starvation, and our higher perceptions remain dormant. The vortex is the prerequisite for awakening. By honoring the spiral, you are honoring the bridge. You are preparing the way for the light to enter your material form. The blood is the messenger, and the vortex is the vehicle. Keep the messenger moving in grace, and the message will always reach its destination. The return to the golden center. Finally, we must recognize that every vortex has a center, a point of stillness around which the movement revolves. In the vortex of your blood, this center is the 0 point. It is the place where the spiral meets the source. In this stillness, all information is accessible and all healing is possible. When we practice the technologies of the vortex, we are not just looking for more movement, we are looking for the stillness at the heart of the movement. This is the paradox of the spiral. The faster it spins, the more profound the silence at its core. This silence is the presence of the observer. As you move through your day, remember that you carry this whirlwind of light within you. You are the master of the storm. By maintaining your internal feng, you ensure that the storm is one of creation, not destruction. You are writing the future of your health in the spirals of your own vital flow. The journey of the blood continues, descending into the depths of the marrow and rising to the peaks of the brain. But wherever it goes, it follows the path of the curve. It follows the path of the soul. Chapter 5. The Hexagonal Crystal, the Architecture of Blood Plasma. Up to this point in our anatomical journey, we have observed the container and the movement. We have mapped the living fractals that make up your veins and felt the vertigo of the helical vortex that your heart prints with every beat. However, to understand the true secret map of healing, we must stop the microscopic lens. We must focus not on the way the river travels, but on the intimate nature of the water itself. Conventional biology teaches us, with a mathematical coldness bordering on the absurd, that blood plasma constitutes approximately 55% of total blood and is 90% water. Under this reductionist definition, plasma is seen as a simple solvent. It is viewed as an inert broth, a passive river, whose only purpose is to drag red blood cells, platelets, hormones, and nutrients through your body. We have been led to believe that the water inside our veins is identical to the water that comes out of the kitchen tap or the water that accumulates in a puddle after the rain. This is one of the greatest fallacies of mechanistic science. The water flowing through your body, bathing your cells and structuring your plasma, has ceased to be a simple liquid to become something infinitely more complex and miraculous. It is a liquid crystal. It is a matrix of living information. In this chapter, we will dive into the quantum architecture of your blood plasma. We will discover that vitality is not measured by the amount of water you ingest, but by the sacred geometry that water manages to form within you. We will unravel the mystery of the fourth state of water and reveal how your plasma acts as a battery. We will understand why true hydration is, in essence, an act of spatial ordering, the maximum expression of the Feng dimension at a molecular level. 1. The fourth state of water, the birth of H3 to Stillas. Since elementary school science classes, the dogma has been unshakable. Water exists in 3 states of matter: solid, ice, liquid, water, and gas, vapor. These phases depend purely on temperature and the thermal agitation of H2 Toroidal molecules. In the liquid state, water molecules are chaotic. They collide billions of times. They form and break hydrogen bonds randomly, but nature, in its infinite elegance, reserves its greatest secrets for liminal spaces, the thresholds where matter interacts with life. At the beginning of this century, biophysicist Dr. Gerald Pollack irrefutably demonstrated what mystics and researchers had suspected. He proved there is a fourth state of water. Pollack discovered that when water comes into contact with hydrophilic surfaces, such as your cell proteins, the walls of your blood vessels, and the vascular endothelium, water molecules stop behaving chaotically. They self-organize. They cease their random dance and begin to structure. They align in perfect geometric layers, one upon the other. In doing so, they expel any solute, impurity, or suspended particle out of this new crystalline network. For this reason, Pollack named it exclusion zone water, EZ water. But the most radical transformation is not just spatial, it is chemical. In this crystalline and structured state, the proportion of hydrogen and oxygen changes. The structured water of your plasma ceases to be regular H2 and becomes a new molecule, H3O2. H3O2 is denser, more viscous, and more alkaline than common water. It has a consistency similar to a light gel or raw egg white. And what is even more fascinating, it adopts a specific geometric shape. The molecules bind, forming networks of perfect hexagons, similar to a microscopic honeycomb, stacking layer by layer along the walls of your veins and arteries. This is the structural foundation of your internal energy. The geometry of the hexagon. Why a hexagon? In the sacred geometry of the universe, the hexagon is the supreme form of two-dimensional efficiency. It is the design that allows the greatest amount of structure to be packed using the least amount of energy and material, a law bees know perfectly when building their hives. It is also the geometric shape that governs snowflakes, the structure of graphene, and the storms at Saturn's North Pole. By structuring itself in hexagons, your blood plasma acquires properties of a superconductor. The matter inside your veins has become conscious matter. It has passed from entropic chaos to syntropic order. It has become a liquid crystal. And as any telecommunications engineer knows, crystals, like quartz in watches or silicon in microchips, have a unique property. They are capable of receiving, storing, amplifying, and transmitting electromagnetic information without distortion. Your plasma is now a high-fidelity antenna. 2. The quantum battery and the voltage of life. The hexagonal architecture of your plasma is not just an aesthetic curiosity, it is the bioelectric foundation of your survival. When water molecules structure themselves into H3O2 next to cell walls, an amazing thermodynamic phenomenon occurs, a separation of electric charges. The chemical process of this transformation releases protons, positively charged hydrogen ions, H-pound-Fo. The hexagonal network of H3O2 retains a net negative charge, an excess of electrons, while expelling the positively charged protons toward the unstructured water flowing through the center of the vessel. This massive separation of charges, negative at the exclusion zone walls, positive in the center, literally creates a biological battery. Your blood plasma does not just transport energy through glucose or oxygen. The plasma is energy. It is a reservoir of voltage. Every capillary and artery is lined by this liquid battery. The negative charge stored in the H3O2 hexagons provides the free electrons your mitochondria desperately need to produce ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the cellular energy currency. When you experience overflowing vitality, sharp mental clarity, and a light body, you are experiencing highly structured plasma. Your quantum battery is at 100%. And here, it intertwines masterfully with the previous chapter, the vortex. Remember that blood travels spinning in a spiral? Vortex flow is the only hydrodynamic movement that protects the exclusion zone. If blood traveled in a straight line with turbulent flow, friction would destroy. It would destroy the hexagonal crystal of the plasma. The vortex protects the crystal, and the crystal allows the vortex to spin without friction. Life is a perfect choreography of self-sustaining geometry. Trace structural dehydration, the thirst of the soul. We face an abyss here between conventional medical advice and quantum biophysics. Daily we are bombarded with the directive to drink 8 glasses of water a day. And yet, millions of people consume liters of purified, filtered and bottled water, and still suffer from chronic cellular dehydration symptoms. They suffer from lethargic fatigue, dry skin, brain fog, constipation, and joint pain. Why? Because water alone does not hydrate. What hydrates is your body's ability to convert chaotic H2 into structured H3G2. If you drink liters of dead water, water devoid of minerals without electromagnetic charge, if it has been stagnant in plastic bottles for months and your body lacks the energy to structure it, that water simply passes through your system, overloads your kidneys, and is excreted as clear urine without ever having entered the sanctuary of your cells. This is called intracellular dehydration. You are literally drowning in water, but your cells are dying of thirst. But what destroys the body's ability to form the hexagonal crystal of the plasma? What drains the quantum battery? A trauma and the chemistry of fear. The hexagonal architecture is exquisitely sensitive to vibrational frequency. Chronic fear, unprocessed trauma, and sustained anxiety alter blood chemistry, flooding it with cortisol, adrenaline, and free radicals. These free radicals are thief molecules that have lost an electron and are desperate to stabilize. To do so, they steal electrons from the hexagonal network of H3O2 in your plasma. By stealing the negative charge, the hexagons collapse. The liquid crystal melts and becomes chaotic water again. The battery drains. This is why, after a traumatic event, you feel physically exhausted and heavy. You haven't burned calories running. You have emptied the voltage of your plasma. You have unstructured your conscious matter. B. Electromagnetic pollution, environmental noise. The liquid crystal of your plasma acts as a receiving antenna. Throughout human history, this antenna has been tuned to the Earth's magnetic field and the subtle frequencies of the sun. Today, we live submerged in a sea of non-native electromagnetic radiation, Wi-Fi networks, cell phones, power lines. These microwaves emit vibrational chaos that constantly hits your body's water, generating a noise that prevents H2,2-D molecules from finding the geometric piece necessary to bind into hexagons. C. The absence of light. Structured water does not form by magic. It requires an energetic catalyst. And in the universe of quantum biology, the main engine that structures water is light, specifically electromagnetic energy from the infrared spectrum. Following Planck's equation, E/H/U, photons transfer their energy, B. This drives the exponential growth of the exclusion zone. Living eternally indoors, under artificial blue light, deprives your blood of the photons necessary to build the cellular battery. S. Plasma as an information network, the word made liquid. When your plasma manages to maintain its hexagonal geometry, blood transcends its biological function and becomes a quantum communication superhighway. In a disorganized fluid, if you emit a signal at one end of the body, it travels slowly through diffusion. But in a hexagonal liquid crystal, it is different. The molecules are so rigidly interconnected that a vibration at one end is transmitted instantly to the other. This phenomenon is analogous to phononic resonance in solid crystal lattices. This instant conductivity explains miraculous healings, visceral intuition, and somatic coherence. Plasma acts as the substrate. It is the physical substrate of the subconscious mind. Every thought you hold, every word you speak, and every emotion you feel does not stay isolated in the brain. The frequency of that thought travels through your nervous system, hits your veins' endothelium, and prints an acoustic wave in your plasma. The molecular Feng dimension. This is where healing becomes an act of deep responsibility. The Feng dimension, the sacred art of harmonizing space, must be applied to the molecular environment. If you maintain a toxic internal dialogue, I am sick, I am broken, you are emitting a dissonant frequency that bombards the H3O2 network. You are smashing the furniture of your own inner space. Dr. Masaru Emoto visually demonstrated this phenomenon by exposing water to different words and intentions, then freezing and photographing its crystals. Water exposed to love and gratitude formed dazzling and symmetrical hexagonal geometries. Water exposed to hate and fear formed asymmetrical and chaotic masses. Your blood plasma reacts exactly the same, but at 37 degrees Celsius and in real time. Your bloodstream is the recording tape of your internal monologue. To activate the healing map, you must become the guardian of the frequency. 5. Rebuilding the hexagonal crystal, structuring technologies. Understanding that your plasma is a liquid crystal vulnerable to unstructuring gives us immense power. We are no longer victims of defective genetics or a body that betrays us. We are the engineers of our own vital fluid. We can actively intervene to recharge the quantum battery and expand the exclusion zone. We can return the plasma to its perfect hexagonal architecture. To achieve this restructuring, we must invoke the same elemental forces that govern the cosmos: light, earth, and the geometry of hydration. A. Photobiomodulation, bathing the blood in light. As we established, H2 grows by absorbing photonic energy. The most potent, ancient, and perfect way to restructure your blood is through exposure to unfiltered sunlight. Infrared light and red light from the solar spectrum, maximal during sunrise and sunset, can penetrate deeply through your skin. They reach the capillary bed directly. Upon making contact with the flowing blood, photons are absorbed by the plasma water, expanding the exclusion zone by up to 400%. When you expose yourself to the sunrise for 20 minutes, you are not just synthesizing vitamin D, you are charging your plasma battery. You are literally structuring your body's liquid, giving it the geometry necessary to defend against inflammation. If you live where the sun is scarce, red light therapy is the biophysical substitute designed to induce this same cellular structuring. B. Telluric electrification, magnetic grounding. The growth of the hexagonal network requires a constant supply of free electrons. If stress and trauma steal electrons, you must find an inexhaustible source to replenish them. The Earth's surface is a gigantic battery with a perpetual negative charge, fed by global thunderstorms and solar radiation. When you walk barefoot on wet grass, soil, sand, or dive into the ocean, you complete an electrical circuit with the planet. Through the pores of your soles, you instantly absorb trillions of free electrons that travel to your bloodstream. This mass charge neutralizes free radicals and provides raw material. It provides the electrical material for H2 to reassemble into H3O2. Grounding, earthing, is the architectural repair of your blood plasma. C. The geometry of ingestion, living water and electrolytes. Stopping the consumption of dead water is the third pillar. Water needs two things to be structured efficiently: vortex movement, as in Chapter 4, and mineral conductivity. The most purely structured water in nature is found inside plant cells. Drinking cold-pressed green juices is ingesting pre-packaged H3O2. For the water you drink from a glass, always add a pinch of unrefined sea salt, Celtic or Himalayan. Unrefined sea salts contain over 80 trace elements biology requires. These minerals act as structural hinges and conducting wires that allow water to maintain its hexagonal shape and electrical conductivity. A demineralized body is unable to sustain its plasma's architecture, no matter how much water it consumes. D. Vocal coherence, the cell's song. Cymatics is the science that studies how sound and frequencies organize matter. Knowing your plasma is a receiving crystal, you can use the mechanical vibration of your own vocal cords to order liquid geometry. The act of humming, chanting mantras, or performing vocal toning makes the ribcage vibrate. These low-frequency acoustic waves travel directly to the heart and aorta, mechanically impacting the blood. Harmonic sound vibration gently stirs the plasma, breaking stress clumps and guiding water molecules toward their perfect geometric rest state. It is the somatic equivalent of tuning an instrument. You are using your voice to return the golden pulse and hexagonal geometry to your own inner ocean. Chapter 6. Fascial Tensegrity, the network supporting the map. In our immersion through quantum anatomy, we have navigated amazing rivers. We have traced the architecture of the living fractals that make up your veins, felt the power of the helical vortex your heart prints on the blood, and decoded the electric miracle of plasma structured into hexagonal crystals. We have the map, the engine, and the fluid. But every river needs a bed. Every map needs a parchment upon which to be drawn. Every sacred fluid needs a container to hold, guide, and protect it without strangling it. If the circulatory system is the secret map of your healing, the connective tissue is the territory itself. We now enter the realm of fascia. Fascia is the uninterrupted network that wraps, penetrates, and sustains every millimeter of your physical existence. Medical science ignored it for centuries, considering it a mere inert wrapper to be cut away to study important organs. Today, biophysics recognizes fascia as the fastest signaling system in the body. It is the great integrator of your conscious matter and the physical storehouse of all your emotional memories. In this chapter, we will dismantle the illusion of how you think your body stands upright. We will explore the architectural principle of tensegrity and understand how emotional trauma becomes a geometric knot. We will see how this suffocates your liquid light, and we will learn to release this network so that the dimension of your internal space regains its original expansion. 1. The skeletal fraud and the tensegrity principle. Close your eyes for a moment and visualize a human skeleton. If I ask you how the body you inhabit stands up, the instinctive answer is that bones stack on top of each other like bricks in a building. The foot supports the tibia the femur the pelvis, and the spine stacks vertebra by vertebra to hold the skull. This is the model of continuous compression. But there is an insurmountable problem with this model. It is false. If you took a real human skeleton, without ligaments, muscles, or fascia, and tried to stack it, it would instantly collapse into a puddle of bones on the floor. Your joints do not fit perfectly like Lego pieces. They are slippery spheres resting on flat surfaces or shallow cavities. Your body is not a brick building that defies gravity by crushing its bases. Your conscious matter operates under an infinitely more sophisticated geometric principle, coined by architect Buckminster Fuller: tensegrity, tension and integrity. In a tensegrity structure, the rigid components, the bones, never touch each other. They float. They are suspended in an ocean of continuous tension provided by an elastic network, the fascia and muscles. Your bones do not hold you up. Your bones are simply the spaces that keep your fascial network open. You are levitating within your own connective tissue. This architecture changes the game of your health. In a brick building, if you hit a corner, only that corner suffers the impact. But in a tensegrity structure, if you pull a thread in the network, the entire structure instantly reconfigures to distribute the load. It is the perfect design for resilience and shock absorption. Your body can run, jump, turn, and fall because tension is distributed globally through your fascial network. However, this global interconnection is a double-edged sword. It means a knot or a restriction in your right foot will pull the network. It will misalign tension in your left shoulder, altering the rotation of your cervical vertebrae and triggering chronic migraines. In the tensegrity model, the symptom is rarely the origin of the problem. Pain is simply the alarm sounding at the weakest link of a network that has lost its geometric symmetry. 2. The extracellular matrix, the fiber optic network. To understand how fascia intervenes in your healing map, we must look at its microscopic structure. Fascia is not a flat sheet. It is a 3D network that penetrates everything. It wraps every muscle, epimysium, divides every fiber, perimysium, and wraps each individual cell, endomysium. It continues inward to the DNA. This biological web is known as the extracellular matrix. It is composed mainly of 3 magical elements: collagen, fibers strong as steel; elastin, highly elastic fibers; and ground substance, a fluid gel rich in hyaluronic acid and structured water H3.2. When you combine collagen with crystalline water, magic happens. The collagen fibers of your fascia are piezoelectric. Piezoelectricity is the property of certain crystals, like quartz, to generate an electric charge when subjected to mechanical pressure or stretching. This means every time you move or breathe, you are stretching your collagen matrix and generating bioelectricity. This electrified fascial network acts as a human-scale fiber optic system. It conducts light, photonic information, and electrons at a speed that dwarfs traditional nerve impulses. Before your brain registers a stimulus, your fascia has already captured the data, adjusted global tension, and signaled your cells. Your fascia is literally the organ of intuition and conscious matter. 3. Trauma as a geometric knot. Knowing the majesty of this tensegrity network, we must face the fundamental question of somatic healing. Why does the network shorten? Why do we lose flexibility with age and develop hunched postures and chronic pain? Medicine blames wear and tear. But the quantum truth is deeper. Fascia is a library of trauma. In previous chapters, we spoke of how the nervous system responds to a threat via the sympathetic system. When an animal in nature escapes a predator, its body floods with cortisol, contracting muscles and fascia to protect vital organs. Once the danger passes, the animal shakes and discharges that energy. The fascia relaxes, and tensegrity is restored. The modern human rarely allows this somatic discharge. When we experience deep trauma, abuse, sudden loss, or chronic stress, our body executes the same contraction. We shrink to protect ourselves. We clench the jaw, cave the chest, and contract the psoas to prepare to run. But since we do not release that energy, the brain orders the matrix to reinforce that defense posture. The body sends more collagen, gluing layers together. The ground substance, which should be a fluid gel of H3O-2, dehydrates into a dense, crystallized glue. The emotional event is now a physical knot. The architecture of spiritual latency. This is where the devastating intersection between your emotional history and your vascular system occurs. Your network of arteries and capillaries runs through the fascial tissue. When fascia dehydrates and forms a knot around an old trauma, it acts as a tourniquet. It literally strangles the delicate capillaries. The blood, spinning in its perfect vortex, crashes against this blockage. Plasma cannot deliver its light, and the cells trapped inside that fascial knot are left in ischemia and cellular darkness. This is the biological basis of spiritual latency. Your divine potential requires high-frequency vibration. But if large parts of your architecture are densified and strangled by ghosts of your past, liquid light cannot circulate. The spirit remains latent, because the physical vehicle lacks the geometric integrity to hold the charge. 4. The Feng dimension of connective tissue. In Feng Shui, the goal is for qi, vital energy, to flow freely, without stagnating in dark corners. The flow must be sinuous and harmonic. If we look at the human body this way, the fascial network is the architecture of a house, and acupuncture meridians are the folds and roots of transmission in this matrix. Your surgical scars and chronic knots act as poorly placed furniture in your internal Feng dimension. The sunken chest, pectoral fascia, shortened by chronic sadness, strangles the space for lungs and the heart's torus. The clenched jaw, fascia densified by unspoken words, blocks circulation to the pineal gland. The contracted psoas. Deep pelvic tissue frozen by fear cuts the flow of liquid light to reproductive organs, disconnecting you from Earth's magnetism. Connective tissue has an implacable memory. No matter how much you meditate, if you don't reorder the fascial space, energy will hit the same blocks. You will be forced to repeat the same survival patterns over and over. 5. The suffocation of liquid light and loss of vortex. To weave these concepts together, visualize the moment blood meets a fascial block. We know blood travels in a spiral, wrapped in structured plasma, maintaining a negative charge to prevent friction. When this red tornado enters a tissue where fascia is rigid, the vessel is compressed from the outside. The topography of the vein deforms. As the tube loses its perfect circular symmetry, the blood vortex collapses. Ordered, implosive flow becomes turbulent and chaotic. Red cells crash into endothelial walls. To compensate, your nervous system is forced to increase global blood pressure. The heart must pump like a brute force machine, losing its golden rhythm and heart rate variability, HRV. The damage continues at a quantum level. Turbulent friction destroys the liquid crystal state, H3O2, of the plasma. Electrons dissipate, and cells surrounding the knot are left electrically discharged. This entire chain collapse, which medicine tries to treat with pills, originated from a distortion in the network. It started because the fabric of your conscious matter knotted itself around an unprocessed fear. 6. Unknotting the map. Somatic release technologies. The Tensegrity model gives us immense hope. Because the body is a continuous network, healing in one area affects the whole. But to restore spatial order, you must abandon the mechanistic mindset. You cannot force fascia to relax. You cannot untangle a knot by pulling its ends. That only tightens it. Fascial release requires quantum principles, awareness, vibration, structured hydration, and a return to natural geometry. Here are the methodologies to intervene in your Tensegrity architecture. A. Unwinding movement, somatic unrolling. Pulling in a straight line does not work in a 3D network. The practice, fascial unwinding, is an intuitive movement practice. Unlike static yoga, it requires you to lie on the floor, close your eyes, and allow your body to move involuntarily and serpentinely. Stretch in strange diagonals mimicking a cat. The geometry. You are inviting the collagen network to undo its own adhesions. This non-directed helical movement sends piezoelectric signals that melt the ground substance glue. You are literally ironing out the wrinkles of your internal Feng dimension. B. Hydration with living water and torsion. Hardened fascia is dehydrated tissue where liquid crystal has vanished. Beating water without movement doesn't work. Like pouring water on a dry sponge, it just slips off. The practice. To rehydrate the fascial sponge, you must squeeze and release. Use deep, sustained myofascial release. Maintain deep pressure on a knot for 3 to 5 minutes while breathing, then release slowly. Immediately after, drink mineral-rich, vortex-structured water. The geometry. Pressure forces stagnant water out. Releasing creates a vacuum that draws structured plasma into the collagen layers. Tensegrity restarts. C. The decoding breath as a 3D expander. Breathing is the most important mechanical event your Tensegrity network experiences. The practice. Perform 360-degree breathing cycles. When inhaling, do not just lift the chest. Feel the diaphragm descend, expanding your side ribs and pushing your lower back. The geometry. You take the central tube of your body and expand it volumetrically. This act, repeated thousands of times a day, is a continuous massage that prevents visceral fascias from sticking together. The diaphragm becomes the piston that keeps the network elastic. De-intention and rewriting the archive. Since the knot formed as a protection order during trauma, it won't release permanently until the nervous system knows the war is over. The practice. In any release technique, when you hit the point of maximum resistance, the geometric knot, stop. Do not push. In that limit, breathe. Speak to the conscious matter. Somatically send the frequency of safety. I see you. I know why you contracted. Thank you for protecting me. But now we are safe. You have my permission to let go. The geometry. You use your golden pulse to deactivate the cell's fear loop. The knot surrenders. Space expands, and liquid light floods the forgotten terrain once again. Chapter 7. The Distortion of Fear when the map breaks. In the recesses of our quantum anatomy, we have discovered a universe of astonishing perfection. We have contemplated the elegance of the vascular fractals that distribute life, the helical implosion of the heart that defies friction, the liquid crystal of our plasma that stores light, and the fascial tensegrity network. This is the original blueprint. It is the impeccable design of conscious matter, structured to sustain the voltage of the spirit and vibrate in resonance with the cosmos. But if this design is so perfect, why do we fall ill? Why do our bodies become rigid, our minds fog up, and our vital energy drain into spiritual latency? The answer is not found in a design flaw, but in a software error we introduce into the system. There is a force capable of altering sacred geometry, melting the liquid crystal, and collapsing the architecture of our fascial network. That force is fear. In this chapter, we are going to demystify fear. We will stop seeing it solely as a passing psychological emotion and understand it as what it truly is at a physical level, an electromagnetic and biochemical signal that distorts internal space. We will explore the chemistry of chaos, understand how inflammation is a literal loss of your inner Feng dimension. 1. The chemistry of chaos, the collapse of the crystal. To understand the destructive power of fear in our internal topography, we must observe the cascade of events triggered in fractions of a second when we perceive a threat. Throughout our evolution, fear was an acute and temporary survival tool. If a predator lurked, the amygdala sent an emergency signal. Instantly, the bloodstream was flooded with catecholamines, adrenaline and noradrenaline, and glucocorticoids, cortisol. This chemical injection has a clear biophysical purpose: short-term survival through brute force. Adrenaline accelerates the heart, forcing it to abandon its golden variability for a rigid rhythm. The peripheral arteries contract, fractal vasoconstriction, to redirect blood to large muscles. Breathing becomes clavicular, shallow, and fast. In an event lasting 10 minutes, this saves your life. But the modern human avatar rarely faces physical predators. We face psychological predators, financial stress and social pressure. The entropy of plasma. What happens to the bloodstream when cortisol and adrenaline become chronic? We enter the domain of thermodynamics and the concept of entropy, the measure of disorder in a system, often expressed in statistical physics by the Boltzmann equation. Desin der KBILLN as omega day, where Stahler's is entropy and Kebau's is the Boltzmann constant. Chronic fear drastically increases the entropy of your biology. At a molecular level, stress hormones are highly oxidative. They act as free radicals, unstable molecules, desperately seeking to steal electrons from their environment. And what is the largest reservoir of free electrons in your body? The hexagonal network of water. As oxidative stress bombards the plasma, it steals the negative charge from the exclusion zone. The liquid crystal of the blood loses its hexagonal symmetry. The living, structured water melts, returning to a chaotic and disordered state. By collapsing the crystal, the quantum battery of your cells is discharged. The blood becomes viscous, losing its ability to retain and transmit biophotons, light. This is the true anatomy of chronic fatigue. It is not that you lack sleep, but that your bloodstream has lost its superconductive geometry. 2. Agglutination, the jam of the vital flow. When the plasma loses its structured negative charge due to stress and fear, a second catastrophe is triggered in your body's fluid dynamics. In a state of coherence, red blood cells float freely. Since they are wrapped in a layer of negatively charged structured water, they repel each other like magnets. But when the negative charge dissipates due to the chemistry of fear, red blood cells lose their field of repulsion. Instead of floating free, they begin to attract and stick to each other, stacking like towers of coins. In clinical medicine, this is known as rouleau formation or erythrocyte agglutination, the suffocation of the periphery. Agglutinated blood is dense, heavy, and lazy. The helical vortex, the implosion engine that moves life without friction, breaks. The physical heart, detecting this viscous sludge in the pipes, panics and must increase hydrostatic pressure, hypertension, to force this dense fluid to move forward. The most serious problem occurs at the ends of the vascular map, the capillaries. Many of your capillaries are so narrow that a single red blood cell can barely pass by, deforming itself. If the blood reaches these tiny tunnels clumped in blocks of 10 or 20 cells, it simply cannot enter. A microscopic traffic jam occurs. Entire zones of your extracellular matrix, your organs, and your brain are left without a fresh oxygen supply and without the ability to evacuate metabolic waste. Your inner space suffocates, and where blood does not flow, conscious matter numbs, anchoring you in spiritual latency. 3. Cellular inflammation, the loss of sacred space. If we observe this crisis through the prism of the Feng dimension, chronic fear is the equivalent of filling an immense and harmonious palace with tons of rubble. The golden rule of spatial order, whether in the architecture of a temple or a cell, is that energy, chi or prana, needs empty space to move. When the blood thickens and capillaries block, toxic waste from cellular metabolism cannot be transported to the kidneys or lungs for elimination. The interstitial fluid, the space between cells, becomes acidic and toxic. To dilute this acidity and protect tissues, the body orders a massive water retention. Cells swell, tissues expand, pressing on nerve endings and generating pain. This process is called inflammation. From a geometric perspective, inflammation is a spatial tragedy. When tissues swell, the fascial tensegrity network we explored in the previous chapter loses its elasticity. The fiber optics of the extracellular matrix, which should transmit flashes of light and instant intuition, dim under the pressure of inflammatory edema. The physical body becomes a dense, heavy vessel, painful to inhabit. Your consciousness is forced to contract, focusing all its attention on the pain of matter. 4. The observer effect in the blood. Here is where mechanistic biology must surrender to quantum physics. If the chemistry of fear destroys the geometry of your blood, who controls that chemistry? In quantum physics, the observer effect postulates that the act of observing a subatomic phenomenon inevitably changes the behavior of that phenomenon. Your biology is a macroscopic quantum system, and you are the sovereign observer. The amygdala in your brain, the gland that triggers the chemistry of stress, is completely blind. It does not know the difference between a hungry lion in your room and an obsessive thought about a financial debt. It only responds to you. If you look at the world through the lens of fear, lack, and victimhood, you are collapsing the wave function of your biology into a reality of survival. You are ordering your bloodstream to thicken its waters, destroy its plasma crystals, and close the doors of its capillaries. You are the conductor. The illusion of the objective environment. We have been conditioned to believe our body reacts to an objective and immutable environment. But the science of epigenetics proves the opposite. Your cells do not interact directly with the outside world. They interact with the blood. And your blood carries the interpretation your mind makes of that world. If you, as an observing consciousness, manage to maintain an internal state of peace and gratitude, even in the midst of external chaos, your blood will reflect that order. Your blood is listening to everything you think. Every catastrophic thought is an acoustic shockwave that breaks the hexagonal structure of your plasma. 5. Ancestral fear and epigenetic noise. Sometimes, the fear that distorts your map does not even belong to you. It is fundamental to understand that the bloodstream is the river where the historical archive of your human lineage sails. Epigenetics has shown that highly traumatic events leave chemical marks, methylation, on DNA. These marks do not change the genetic code itself, but they alter how those genes are turned on or off in future generations. If your grandparents lived in a state of extreme survival, the default configuration of your nervous system inherited a greater sensitivity to threat. Your amygdala has a lighter trigger. This is ancestral fear. It is electromagnetic background noise interfering with your current signal. It is a low vibration frequency that clumps your blood without a conscious reason. Healing the distortion of fear is an act of cosmic redemption. You are clearing the river of liquid memory. 6. Rebuilding the map, the alchemy of courage. The first rule of inner alchemy is that you cannot fight force with force. If you try to fight your own fear, you are only activating the sympathetic nervous system further. You are injecting more cortisol into your system, trying to put out the fire with gasoline. Fear is dissolved through transmutation. The biological and quantum antidote for the distortion of fear is courage, the presence of the heart, from the Latin cor. Here are the 3 master technologies to stop the chemistry of chaos and rewrite the geometry of your blood. Isomatic interruption, the vagus nerve hack. When fear takes over blood chemistry, the analytical brain shuts down. Trying to reason your way out of chronic stress is useless because the prefrontal cortex is disconnected. You must use the body to change the mind. The practice, structured physiological breathing. It consists of a double inhalation through the nose, followed by a long, prolonged exhalation through the mouth. Allonging the exit of air massively stimulates the vagus nerve. The heart slows, cortisol stops, and capillary vasodilation begins. B. Redesigning inner space, the quantum vacuum. If the inflammation of fear is the loss of space, we must actively create space. The practice. Conscious intermittent fasting and sensory silence. Stopping the intake of solid food for windows of 16 to 24 hours, while simultaneously turning off screens and digital noise. The geometry. By stopping digestion and reducing noise, the body activates autophagy. The immune system devours proteins clumped in the plasma. Fasting is the cosmic vacuum of the inner Feng dimension. C. Imposed cardiac coherence, the sovereign oscillator. The heart is the magnetic center of gravity. If the mind is producing fear chemistry, the heart must intervene and impose a field of greater order. The practice. Place your hand on your chest. Evoke the feeling of deep appreciation or unconditional gratitude. Hold that feeling and breathe through the heart. The geometry. When the heart enters coherence, it emits a signal so strong it trains the brain to change its waves. The pineal gland releases oxytocin, which acts as a cleaner for the vascular endothelium, letting the exclusion zone recover its hexagonal crystal structure. Chapter 8. The Feng Dimension, Harmonizing Your Inner Space. In our journey through quantum anatomy, we have witnessed how fear, trauma, and survival chemistry possess the devastating power to collapse the geometry of our bloodstream. We saw how inflammation suffocates the liquid crystal of plasma and how emotional tension entangles our fascial network, turning our spirit's vehicle into a prison. However, the universe did not design us to be passive victims of chaos. It endowed us with the supreme capacity for conscious observation and intentional restructuring. The time has come to abandon the role of patients at the mercy of entropy and assume our legitimate role, that of architects of our own biology. For millennia, Eastern sages perfected the art of Feng Shui, a geometric and energetic science dedicated to harmonizing outer space. They taught us that the arrangement of a room, the orientation of a door, and the flow of wind and water, Feng and Shui, determine if vital energy, Qi, stagnates or flows and nourishes. But the great revelation of quantum medicine is that the same laws governing a temple's architecture govern the topography of your arteries. Welcome to the Feng dimension. In this chapter, we will transfer the ancient art of spatial harmonization to your body's interior. We will discover that true healing is not addition but subtraction. We will learn to clear the pathways, use the void as a tool for cellular regeneration, and direct the fluidity of qi through conscious matter to turn your anatomy into the sanctuary of liquid light it was always destined to be. We will focus on removing the disorder to allow the original biological state to emerge. 1. Macro and microcosm. The principle of spatial correspondence. The Hermetic principle of correspondence dictates, as above, so below, as within, so without. Sacred geometry is fractal, meaning the universe repeats its success patterns at all scales of existence. Imagine an abandoned house. If the hallways are cluttered with broken furniture, the environment becomes heavy and cold. The electromagnetic energy of the space collapses. Anyone entering that house will immediately feel the drain on their vitality. Now, apply this same lens to your internal space. Your body is the ultimate temple, and its interior architecture is subject to the same relentless laws of physics and fluid dynamics. Your vital organs and bones are the structural furniture. Your arteries, veins, capillaries, and lymphatic vessels are the hallways where energy must circulate. Your fascial matrix represents the walls and ceilings defining the rooms. When you consume processed foods and harbor toxic resentments, you introduce debris. You are introducing rubble into your inner temple. These obstacles take very real biological forms: atheromatous plaques, accumulations of oxidized cholesterol, and calcium-narrowing arterial passages. Senescent cells, zombie cells that occupy vital space and secrete inflammatory toxins. Fascial crystallizations, dehydrated tissue. In fluid dynamics, when a conduit's area is reduced, the fluid is forced to accelerate aggressively to maintain flow. In your biology, this forced bottleneck does not generate efficiency. It generates turbulent flow, high blood pressure, and destructive friction. Ultimately, it breaks the helical vortex that protects your cells. Physical disorder in your internal Feng dimension destroys the sacred geometry of flow. Qi stagnates, blood clumps, and disease appears, not as a divine punishment, but as the inescapable result of a space that has lost its original harmony. 2. Clearing the ways. The art of the void and autophagy. The greatest error of the Western mindset regarding health is the blind belief that healing always requires adding something. If tired, we add stimulants. If in pain, we add analgesics. If we want health, we add supplements. But in internal Feng Shui, the secret of extreme vitality resides not in accumulation, but in the void. Empty space is the canvas where conscious matter can regenerate. You cannot invite liquid light and structured plasma to inhabit a vascular system cluttered with metabolic trash. First, you must clean the house. The most powerful biophysical tool to restore the inner Feng dimension is fasting, understood as a spatial cleaning technology. The magic of autophagy. When you stop caloric intake for a prolonged period, usually 16 to 24 hours, you turn off the cellular pathway for growth and turn on the pathway for maintenance. In this state of nutritional void, the body executes a miraculous biological program called autophagy, from the Greek, to eat oneself. By not having to digest external food, a process that hogging blood, energy, and nervous system attention, somatic intelligence scours your body for alternative fuel. What does it devour first? The disorder. Your immune system begins to digest misfolded proteins, damaged mitochondria, and senescent cells. The body, in its infinite geometric wisdom, recycles trash and transmutes it into pure energy. Fasting is the cosmic broom of your internal topography. Through prolonged void, arteries regain their diameter, inflammation fades, and interstitial fluid becomes crystalline again. You allow your plasma to expand. Sensory silence as mental cleansing. Clutter is not exclusively physical. It is electromagnetic and cognitive. Your nervous system processes millions of bits of information through screens, notifications, and constant hyperstimulation. This white noise generates static in your toroidal field and keeps the oxidative chemistry of stress ignited. To harmonize the inner space, metabolic fasting must be accompanied by sensory fasting. The intentional practice of silence, temporary seclusion in darkness, or deep immersion in nature without electronic devices clears the subtle channels of the mind. It allows the pineal gland to recalibrate your circadian rhythm. It allows your heart rate variability to recover its golden pulse. Emptying the mind is the non-negotiable prerequisite for blood to regain its geometric peace. Without this silence, the internal architecture remains saturated with static, preventing the fluid from flowing with its natural elegance. 3. The flow of chi in conscious matter. Once space has been cleared through fasting and silence, the next step in the Feng dimension is reactivating energy circulation. In traditional Chinese medicine, an unbreakable axiom exists. Where the mind goes, the chi goes, and where the chi flows, the blood flows. Your bloodstream is conscious matter, As such, it responds instantly to the focused intention of its observer. Western medical science is just beginning to touch the edges of this quantum mystery through psychoneuroimmunology, but mystical traditions have always known it. Your blood literally follows the path laid out by your conscious attention. The directional effect of intention. When you bring undivided attention to a specific part of your body, a tangible physiological phenomenon occurs. If you focus all your will on your right hand, within minutes, the capillaries there will dilate. Skin temperature will rise. You have ordered the blood to head massively toward that zone without moving a muscle. The chi, the electromagnetic energy of your attention, acted as the force of gravity, and the liquid light of your blood simply obeyed. This is the master key to opening stagnant meridians. If you have chronic pain, it is because the fascial network has knotted, strangling the supply of blood and photons to that area. That part of your body has become a cold zone, exiled from the Feng dimension of your systemic circulation. To reconnect it, you must illuminate it with the flashlight of your consciousness. Through somatic meditation, travel internally toward the zone of pain. Do not flee the discomfort, as that generates more tension. Instead, consciously send a warm cascade of relaxation, gratitude, and oxygen toward that exact point. By holding the intention, you are using your quantum mind to dismantle the fear barrier and reopen the capillary valves that trauma closed. 4. The architecture of the 5 internal elements. Classic Feng Shui organizes harmony through the balance of the 5 elements. These categories represent the 5 fundamental states of energy and matter. When we project this map onto your circulatory system, we find an amazing correspondence. These 5 elements must operate in geometric balance for illuminated blood. Water, structured plasma. The element of adaptability, memory, and fluidity. It is the liquid crystal of plasma. Imbalance manifests as fascial dehydration and emotional attachment to the past. It is harmonized through electrolyte-rich hydration and helical movement that keeps the fluid's inertia alive. Wood, fractal vascular tree and liver, represents growth, flexibility, and expansion. Anatomically, it is the network of your vessels and liver. If wood is rigid due to anger or stress, the capillary network suffers vasoconstriction and the tree withers. It is harmonized through expansive fascial stretching. Fire, toroidal heart and thermogenesis. The central oscillator, voltage, and basal temperature. It is the implosion vortex in your chest. Excess fire manifests as systemic inflammation and anxiety. Deficiency is lethargy and cold extremities. It is harmonized through cardiac coherence breathing. Earth, red blood cells and grounding, represents density, structure, and your anchor to 3D reality. These are the oxygen-carrying vehicles. Disconnection from Earth makes you unstable and prone to dizziness. It is harmonized through grounding and the intake of living foods vibrating with Earth's magnetism. Metal, iron, oxygen, and boundary. Conductivity, order, and the immune system. Biologically, it is the iron antenna in your hemoglobin and the lungs' breath. Weak metal results in blood unable to retain oxygen and a permeable aura. It is harmonized through deep cellular oxygenation and boundary setting. When these elements operate in symbiosis, your internal Feng dimension is sealed yet infinitely receptive. The motor drives the transporter, which travels through the liquid crystal, using the conducting antenna, flowing freely through the immense expansive network. 5. Daily internal Feng Shui practices. Knowledge of spatial geometry is useless if not anchored in the sacred discipline of the body. Conscious matter requires repeated action to crystallize its new structure. We distill this philosophy into 3 daily somatic technologies to keep your Feng dimension clear and your blood free of friction. A. The sweeping breath, vortex cleansing. Just as you open windows to ventilate a room, you must ventilate the dark corners of your respiratory and circulatory systems to sweep away the acidic residues of the night. The practice. Upon waking, stand by an open window. Inhale deeply through the nose, inflating the belly and chest. On the exhale, force the air out by contracting the abdomen muscles with force, pronouncing the sound ha. Repeat 10 times. The spatial effect. This active exhalation creates a pressure gradient that squeezes stagnant venous blood from the viscera and massages the vagus nerve. You are physically expelling residual air and instantly alkalizing the pH of your bloodstream, preparing the inner space for the light of the new day. B. Dissolution scan, directing qi. This practice is the equivalent of passing a quantum flashlight through your corridors, dissolving obstacles with the pure power of the observer effect. The practice. At night, lie in bed and close your eyes. Bring attention to your toes and begin to move slowly up your anatomy. Search for geometric knots, zones of tension, fascial blocks, or cold. Stop at each knot. Focus your will on that point. Imagine your attention is an infrared laser melting ice. The spatial effect, you are using the mind-body connection to force vasodilation in ischemic zones. By melting tension before sleep, you ensure that spinal fluid and blood can perform nightly maintenance without crashing into fascial barriers. C. Tensegrity alignment, power posture. Your physical posture literally dictates the volume of your inner space. A hunched posture compresses organs, asphyxiates vessels, and collapses the chest, destroying your Feng dimension. The practice. Throughout the day, perform the Tensegrity adjustment. Imagine an invisible golden thread pulling your crown toward the sky. Feel your feet rooting into the earth. Let your shoulders fall back and down, opening the center of the chest. The spatial effect. You are not forcing muscles. You are allowing the skeleton to float in the fascial matrix. By straightening the spine, you maximize the volume of the thoracic cavity. You give the heart the non-negotiable physical space it needs to rotate without being crushed by the weight of your own body. Chapter 9. Conscious Matter, the Dialogue Between Spirit and Form. We have traveled an immense and amazing journey through the topography of your inner universe. We began by marveling at the fractals of your blood vessels, understood the implosive power of your toroidal heart, discovered the quantum battery residing in the hexagonal crystal of your plasma, and untangled the tensegrity of your fascia. We learned to clear the space through the Feng dimension. All this architecture, this fluid dynamics, and this spatial geometry have prepared us for the most profound revelation of your entire biological existence. Until now, we have treated the blood, the heart, and the veins as miraculous physical structures reacting to your emotions. But the time has come to take the final quantum leap. We must once and for all abandon the idea that your body is an object, an inert vehicle, or a simple container that your soul temporarily inhabits. Your body is listening to you. Your blood is not a blind liquid. It is crystallized intelligence. Your flesh is not a burden. It is conscious matter. In this 9th chapter, we will tear down the illusory wall that has separated spirit from form for millennia. We will explore how the physics of sound and cymatics alter the geometry of your cells in real time. We will understand that true spiritual enlightenment does not consist of escaping this world. It consists of embodying totally, anchoring the highest light of the cosmos directly into the sacred geometry of your veins. 1. The end of dualism, spirit made flesh. To understand the magnitude of conscious matter, we must first unlearn one of the most destructive philosophical errors in human history, Cartesian dualism. For centuries, philosophy and religion taught us to divide our existence into two irreconcilable realms. On one hand, the mind or spirit, pure, elevated, and divine. On the other, the body and matter, dirty, heavy, flawed, and prone to decay. This division created a collective psychic wound. It convinced us that to reach enlightenment or deep healing, we had to subdue the body, ignore its needs, or treat it as a biological machine that must be medicated so as not to disturb the mind. Modern quantum physics has pulverized this illusion. If you look at a cell in your bloodstream through an electron microscope, you will see molecules. If you zoom into the molecules, you will see atoms. And if you manage to look inside the atom, what will you find? You will find that 99.9999999% of the atom is empty space. There are no solid particles bouncing like billiard balls. There are energy fields, quantum fluctuations, and vortices of information appearing and disappearing. The solidity of your body is an optical illusion generated by the speed at which these electromagnetic fields vibrate. Matter is not distinct from energy. Matter is energy that has slowed its vibrational frequency enough to become tangible, visible, and experienceable in the third dimension. Your body is not the case for your spirit. Your body is your densified spirit. It is consciousness itself, vibrating at a slower wavelength to feel, bleed, and love in the physical plane. When you assimilate this truth, the concept of blood acquires a sacred dimension. The plasma running through your vascular fractals is not biological water. It is universal consciousness flowing in a liquid state. The iron at the center of your hemoglobin is not just a mineral. It is the antenna of the cosmos made metal. There is no separation. The dialogue between spirit and form does not occur through a long-distance telephone. It occurs in every heartbeat, in every millisecond, in the friction of every red blood cell against the endothelium of your arteries. 2. Blood as crystallized intelligence. To dialogue with the form, we must recognize that form possesses intelligence, not a cognitive and analytical intelligence like that of the prefrontal cortex, but a somatic, fractal, and deep intelligence. Conventional medicine assumes that cellular processes are blind mechanisms, automatic chemical reactions driven by chance. But when we observe the behavior of the immune system, for example, we witness coordinated, strategic decision-making of dazzling sophistication. Macrophages and lymphocytes patrol the fascial network, identify intruders, and communicate through cytokines, chemical messages, and biophotons, light messages. This choreography requires information, it requires memory, it requires a medium that stores and transmits data at the speed of light. As we revealed in Chapter 5, that medium is the hexagonal crystal of your plasma, H in 302 Crystals are the most perfect memory storage structures in the universe. Your bloodstream is a massive, constantly moving liquid crystal. Every experience you live, every trauma you repress, every moment of awe that steals your breath, imprints a vibrational signature on the geometric structure of your plasma. The blood is the hard drive of your physical avatar. It is crystallized intelligence. When you cut your finger and the wound heals, it is not your conscious brain directing platelets to form a clot, nor instructing fibroblasts to weave new collagen. It is the intelligence of conscious matter, operating through the impeccable memory of your blood. The blood knows what to do. It is connected to the morphogenetic field of life itself. The problem arises when our analytical mind, trapped in fear or disconnection, spiritual latency, interferes with this innate intelligence. When we send chronic panic signals, we introduce computer viruses into the hard drive. We disrupt the crystal symmetry. We silence the wisdom of the blood. To restore the healing map, we must stop giving mechanical orders to the body and begin to establish a vibrational dialogue of respect and coherence with our matter. 3. Internal cymatics and vocal resonance, the power of the word. How does the spirit, the quantum mind, dialogue with the form, the blood plasma and fascia? Through the most primal organizing force of the universe, sound and frequency. Cymatics is the study of how sound waves alter and structure matter. In the famous experiments of Hans Jenny and Ernst Chladni, sand organizes. When fine sand is spread on a metal plate and vibrated with specific acoustic frequencies, the sand, once disordered chaos, jumps and spontaneously organizes into geometric patterns of breathtaking beauty. Perfect mandalas, hexagons and stars appear out of nowhere, dictated purely by the frequency of the sound. If you change the frequency, the mandala dissolves and a new, more complex one forms. Now take this principle to your internal Feng dimension. Your body is approximately 70% water, a medium infinitely more sensitive to sound waves than sand or metal, and you possess an acoustic frequency generator over your heart. It is your larynx and vocal cords. When you speak, you are not just expelling air to communicate with the outside world. You are emitting an acoustic wave that travels inward, descends your trachea, vibrates the rib cage, and directly hits the aorta and the heart. The word that organizes the blood. Every time you use your voice, you are practicing internal cymatics. The frequencies of the words you speak, and above all, the intention and emotional tone behind them, alter in real time the geometric shape of your cells and the crystalline structure of your plasma. You are the architect of your own fluid order. The frequency of dissonance. When you complain bitterly, when you curse your body, "I hate my back pain, I am broken," or when you speak from chronic anger, your vocal cords emit jagged, arrhythmic frequencies. This vibration acts like a jackhammer on the fascial Tensegrity network. It breaks the hexagonal structure of H in 3 os 2 dollars, clumps red blood cells, and induces oxidative stress. You are disrupting the sand on your metal plate. Your word is making you physically ill. The frequency of coherence. When you speak from deep truth, when you use words of compassion and gratitude, you emit waves. These acoustic frequencies are the perfect geometric massage for the plasma. The vibrations order the water molecules of your bloodstream, forcing them to adopt their state of minimum friction and maximum energy, the hexagonal crystal. In ancient scriptures, the Word made flesh is literal quantum biophysics, the magic of toning and cellular chanting. To use this dialogue intentionally, ancient cultures developed mantras and harmonic chants. They did not do it just for spiritual devotion. They did it because sustained sound heals tissue. The practice of toning, emitting a sustained vocal sound like a deep A, stimulates the vagus nerve mechanically. It drastically increases the production of nitric oxide, a powerful vascular fractal dilator, and restructures cellular liquid. When you hum or whisper words of love to your own organs in the darkness of your room, you are not being esoteric. You are exercising your authority as the quantum engineer. For total embodiment, the return to the temple. With the arrival of the New Age movement, a dangerous spiritual trap has spread. We have been sold the idea that waking up spiritually means transcending the body. They teach us to meditate, to get out of our heads, to project onto the astral plane, and to ignore our physical density. They tell us we are beings of light, and that the flesh is just a temporary illusion. This is a subtle form of dissociation and an insult to the masterpiece of sacred geometry. The true quantum master knows that the path is not up and out, the path is in and down. The goal is to anchor the spirit. You must anchor the spirit with such force, presence, and geometric coherence that the flesh itself becomes illuminated. This is called total embodiment. When you live dissociated, thinking about the future, or trying to evade your emotional pain, you abandon the command seat of your own avatar. You leave the body empty, and a body empty of observing consciousness becomes easy prey for entropy, inflammation, and automated survival programs. For conscious matter to wake up, you must inhabit it. You must feel the weight of your bones interacting with the Earth's gravity. You must feel the texture of the air at the inner edge of your nostrils. You must dare to feel the dull pain of your fascial knot without fleeing to your analytical mind. You must descend into the warm, pulsing darkness of your internal organs and fill that space with your unwavering attention. Illuminating the labyrinth. When you achieve this degree of radical presence in your own tissue, a biophysical phenomenon occurs. The observer effect is activated in its maximum expression. Energy follows attention. By anchoring your consciousness in your body, the electrical voltage of your nervous system increases. The biophotons, the literal light stored in your cells and plasma, begin to emit their radiation coherently. The spiraling blood captures this light and distributes it throughout the immense fractal tree of your capillaries. You cease to be a machine and become a generator of liquid light. This is the physiological state where spontaneous remissions and evolutionary leaps occur. Healing is no longer something you try to get by fixing broken parts. Healing becomes a natural byproduct of a body that is fully inhabited, an inner space so densely populated that disease has no geometric room. Type practical dialogue embodiment technologies. Taking the theory of conscious matter into your daily reality requires you to modify how you interact with your own organism. You must go from being the tyrant who demands performance to being the listener who collaborates with its immense wisdom. This is the heart of somatic sovereignty. Here are the 3 somatic technologies to establish the definitive dialogue. A. The somatic scan of radical acceptance. Unlike scans designed to force relaxation, this exercise seeks simple witnessing of matter. The practice. Lie on your back. Bring awareness to different areas, especially those causing pain or shame. Instead of sending the intention to heal them, simply observe. I feel you. You have permission to be. Have. The effect. By abandoning resistance and the friction of judgment, you turn off the sympathetic stress response. Conscious matter responds to unconditional acceptance by instantly relaxing tension in the fascial tensegrity matrix. The space opens and plasma flow resumes toward the exiled zone. B. Cellular chanting, geometric tuning. Use your own cymatics to reorganize the electromagnetic static of your blood after a stressful event. The practice. Sit comfortably and place both hands in the center of your chest. Inhale deeply. On the exhale, emit a low, vibrating mmm sound like a bee, ensuring you feel the vibration in your chest. Repeat for 5 to 10 minutes. The effect. This constant acoustic frequency is a physical equalizer. The mechanical hum travels through the blood, breaking clumps between red blood cells, stimulating nitric oxide release, and forcing interstitial fluid back into its hexagonal symmetry. You are singing order to your cells. See the water mirror dialogue. Since your plasma is a receiving crystal sensitive to intention, the structured water phenomenon, you must change the language you program yourself with. The practice. Hold a glass of pure water at heart level. Before drinking, project a deep affirmation. You are the liquid light renewing my matter. Visualize sacred geometry transferring from your hands to the liquid. Then, drink it slowly. The effect. You are introducing high-coherence information directly into the supply network. Your matter assimilates the water structured by your intention, distributing the message of healing through the fractal tree. Chapter 10. Rebuilding the Map. Integrated Healing Technologies. Throughout this profound anatomical and spiritual journey, we have dismantled the illusion of mechanical biology. We have descended into the depths of your inner topography to discover that you are not an accident of the flesh, but a quantum ecosystem of overwhelming precision. We have traced the law of branching in your vascular fractals. We have felt the force of implosion in the toroidal vortex of your heart, decoded the hexagonal crystal of your plasma, and exposed how fear and trauma knot the fascial tensegrity network, suffocating your liquid light. We now understand the map, the engine, the fluid, the network, and the consciousness that governs it all. However, intellectual knowledge alone does not alter matter. Reading about sacred geometry does not unclog a blocked capillary, nor does it dissolve the clumping of red blood cells induced by chronic stress. For conscious matter to awaken from its spiritual latency, philosophy must be transmuted into biological action. The cartographer must become the engineer. In this 10th and final chapter of our anatomical tour, we are going to gather each of the scattered pieces of this immense cosmic puzzle and assemble them into a unified protocol. I will give you the integrated healing technologies, a system of somatic, vibrational, and nutritional practices. These are designed to rebuild your map from the foundations. You will learn to orchestrate movement, breath, sound, and water to reach the peak state of biological evolution, the state of absolute fluidity. 1. The architecture of practice, the end of mechanical biohacking. The modern era is obsessed with biohacking, the idea that we can trick the human body through isolated supplements, quick injections, or electronic devices to extract more performance from it, as if it were a defective engine. This mentality remains anchored in the mechanistic paradigm and disconnection. Rebuilding the map of your healing requires abandoning biohacking and adopting biomagnetic tuning. We are not trying to hack or force a stupid system. We are trying to remember the language of an infinitely intelligent system. Integrated healing recognizes that you cannot treat the blood without treating the fascia. You cannot treat the heart without calming the mind, and you cannot structure the water without the presence of light. Everything is intertwined. Therefore, your daily practice should not be a list of tedious tasks, but an intimate ceremony of geometric recalibration. You must approach your body every morning as a sacred instrument. You must tune it before playing the symphony of the day. To achieve this tuning, we will use 3 fundamental pillars that directly impact the internal Feng dimension: vortical hydration, cardiorespiratory coherence, and helical tensegrity. Do the quantum alignment routine, the morning protocol. The most critical moment for your internal topography is the first 30 minutes after waking up. During the night, the body has performed its deep cleaning work, filtering toxins from the brain and repairing damaged tissue. Upon opening your eyes, your blood is naturally more viscous and your fascial network is slightly stiff. What you do in this window of time will determine if your cardiovascular system will operate for the rest of the day in a state of destructive friction or superconductivity. Below, I detail the 15-minute routine designed to rebuild the cellular map every dawn. Phase 1. Plasma ignition, minutes 0-3. Before looking at a screen, before speaking a word, and definitely before consuming caffeine, which is an aggressive vasoconstrictor that withers your vascular fractal, you must turn on your blood plasma battery. The action: fill a large glass with pure water. Add a pinch of unrefined sea salt. Take a wooden or glass spoon and stir the water vigorously in circles to form a deep whirlpool. Observe the vortex. While it spins, hold it with both hands, impose an intention of silent gratitude, and drink it. The geometry. You are ingesting living water, charged with kinetic energy of implosion and the electrical hardware of trace elements. Upon entering your empty stomach, this liquid provides the rotational inertia and components necessary for chaotic H2O to reassemble into the hexagonal crystal H3O2 of the exclusion zone. Phase 2, helical fascial unwinding, minutes 3-8. With structured fluid entering the system, you must prepare the vessel that contains it. You must open the doors of the internal Feng dimension. The action. Standing barefoot on the floor, separate your feet shoulder-width apart. Begin to perform gentle spinal rotations. Let your arms hang loose and spin around your central axis, gently hitting your kidneys and abdomen. Then, perform spiral stretches. Reach upward and twist your torso slightly like a vine. The geometry. You are mimicking the vortex on a macro scale. This spiral movement squeezes the Tensegrity network, releasing adhesions crystallized during sleep. By twisting and releasing tissues, you create a vacuum effect that sucks the structured water you just drank directly into the collagen matrix. Your map expands. Phase 3, golden pulse tuning, minutes 8-12. Now that the channels are open and lubricated, it is time to turn on the master oscillator and set the rhythm of resilience. The action: sit comfortably with a straight spine. Close your eyes and place your attention in the center of the chest. Initiate resonance breathing at 0.1 Hz. Inhale gently through the nose for 5 seconds, expanding the ribs in 360 degrees. Exhale for 5 seconds, surrendering your weight to gravity. The geometry. You are imposing the mathematical code of the golden ratio, Phi, upon your nervous system. Within a few cycles, heart rate variability, HRV, reaches its maximum amplitude. The heart ceases to be a rigid metronome and begins to dance. Your toroidal field expands, magnetizing every cell with order. Phase 4. Cymatic sealing, minutes 12-15. The final step is to use conscious matter to seal the geometry and send the regeneration order to the cells farthest in your periphery. The action. Maintaining the respiratory rhythm, use the exhalation to emit a sustained vocal tone, toning. It can be a deep O or a hum, mm. Make the sound vibrate physically in your sternum. While doing so, flood your mind with a genuine emotion of unconditional appreciation for being alive. The geometry. Acoustic waves act as a mechanical massage on the plasma and vascular endothelium. This vibration breaks any remaining clumping in red blood cells. The blood, now thin, structured, and vibrant, shoots through the aorta in a perfect vortex, bathing your physical body in liquid light. You have completed the alignment. In 15 minutes, you have reversed the state of survival, eradicated entropy from your vital fluid, and programmed your matter for absolute fluidity. 3. Geometric nutrition, eating light and spatial order. To sustain this reconstructed map throughout the day, the way you feed your body must change drastically. Conventional dietetics classifies food only in terms of macronutrients and calories. This is a thermal and mechanical view of biology, as if you were a stove burning coal. But you are a being of liquid light. Your nutrition must be evaluated by the amount of geometric information and photonic energy it contributes to your plasma. A. Ingestion of biophotons. The structured water of your cells, H3O2, expands and recharges by absorbing light. Plants perform photosynthesis to trap the sun's photons. When you consume fresh, raw, sun-ripened foods, you are eating literal light. These biophotons are used by your DNA for ultra-fast quantum communication. By contrast, ultra-processed dark foods have a biophoton count near 0. Upon ingesting them, your body must spend its own photonic energy and steal electrons from your plasma to try to metabolize this inert matter. Dead food steals your voltage and collapses the internal hexagonal crystal. B. Fasting as the architecture of space. We return to the supreme principle of the Feng dimension. Space is as important as matter. Eating constantly 5 or 6 times a day keeps your digestive and immune systems in a state of perpetual work. Blood flow stagnates in the intestines, and the body never has energy for maintenance. Conscious intermittent fasting is the architectural design of the void. By allowing windows of 16 to 24 hours without solid food, the body activates autophagy. The fire of your metabolism devours cellular clutter and cleans the internal light of your arteries. Fasting returns volume to your inner space. Or the state of absolute fluidity, 0 friction. When you consistently apply the morning alignment routine, purify your diet toward geometric nutrition, and keep fear chemistry at bay through cardiac coherence, the map of your biology is completely restructured. The result of this internal alchemy is not simply the absence of disease. Conventional health defines being healthy as not having symptoms serious enough to go to the hospital. But the absence of pain is not the ceiling of your biological potential, it is merely the floor. The climax of this reconstruction introduces you to the state of absolute fluidity or biological superconductivity. A superconducting material is one that loses absolutely all its electrical resistance. Energy can flow through it eternally without losing a single volt. What does it feel like to inhabit a human body in a state of absolute fluidity? Sovereign immunity and absence of inflammation. The body stops fighting itself. Morning stiffness and disproportionate allergic reactions disappear. Since plasma is structured and capillaries are open, the immune system can watch over every corner, neutralizing pathogens without triggering systemic inflammation. Crystalline cognitive clarity. Without clumped blood-blocking brain microcirculation, the prefrontal cortex and pineal gland receive a constant bath of prana and free electrons. brain fog dissipates. Intuition becomes a constant flow of reliable information. You know what to do without intellectual doubt. The heart as a magnetic compass. Decision-making leaves the tyranny of the anxious analytical brain and descends to the chest. You become exquisitely sensitive to the geometry of your environment. If you enter a room with dissonant frequency, you will feel it as a contraction in your fascial network. Your illuminated blood has become your supreme GPS. The fall of psychological time. In the state of absolute fluidity, anxiety about the future and regret about the past become biologically unsustainable. Because the heart in coherence beats in the perpetual now, you experience a sense of physical lightness. 5. Somatic mastery and radical responsibility. Reaching absolute fluidity is the claim of your divine right, but sustaining it requires a profound transformation in your identity. You must forever abandon the archetype of the biological victim. Modern society and the pharmaceutical industry have conspired to convince us that we are fragile. They teach us to cede our authority to external experts and to fear our own symptoms. This mentality is, in itself, the most toxic geometric signal you can send to your bloodstream. Rebuilding the map means accepting radical responsibility. No one else can structure your plasma water for you. No doctor can force your heart to regain its golden pulse if you decide to hold on to anger and resentment. No therapist can unknot your fascia if you refuse to move and breathe through the pain of past traumas. The surgeon's scalpel cannot rewrite the vibration of your conscious matter. You are the master of your own alchemy. You are the architect of your internal space. Quantum healing does not demand immediate perfection. It demands commitment to the dialogue. There will be days when the vortex collapses. Mastery is not the absence of the fall, but the speed of recovery. With the integrated technologies in your power, you now have the capacity to detect collapse instantly and use breath, spiral movement, and vocal frequency to restore order in minutes. You are no longer at the mercy of the storm. You have become the eye of the hurricane, the center of gravity. Conclusion: the treasure in the blood. We have reached the delta of this immense and amazing inner river. Throughout these pages, we have torn the veil of mechanistic biology to peer into the glowing abyss of our own quantum anatomy. We can no longer look at our hands, feel our pulse, or breathe the air around us with the same naivety as before. We have discovered that beneath our skin dwells not a fragile machine condemned to wear and tear, but a vibrant universe structured by sacred geometry and animated by the unfathomable intelligence of creation. The greatest deception of our era was convincing us that the treasure we sought was hidden somewhere outside of us. They taught us to search in stone temples, in abstract philosophies, and in synthetic chemistry for enlightenment, unbreakable health, and divine connection. However, the true treasure was always flowing, in a perfect and tireless vortex, right in the center of our chest. It was always there, waiting to be recognized and embodied. You are the cartographer of your destiny. The most radical revelation of this journey is not that you possess a perfect geometric map within you, but that you are the cartographer. The map of your healing is not carved in stone, it is drawn in water. And as we have seen throughout our study of the inner Feng dimension, the structured water of your plasma is a liquid crystal. It is infinitely receptive. It listens to your thoughts, reacts to your fears, and is shaped by the frequency of your words. Every time you choose cardiac coherence over panic, you are redrawing the fractals of your blood vessels. Every time you decide to inhabit your pain with radical presence, you are unknotting the fascial network. You are opening new pathways for liquid light to flood your forgotten territories. The conscious matter that composes you is a plastic, dynamic, and obedient canvas. You are not a victim of your genetics or a prisoner of your diagnosis. You are the sovereign architect of your quantum space. Responsibility is the key to your freedom. When you assume this radical responsibility, illness and lethargy cease to be inevitable punishments. They become simple signals that your map needs to be recalibrated, that your river needs to recover its golden spin. You have the tools, the knowledge, and the divine right to reorganize your biological space at any moment. The epigenetic legacy, rewriting history. This cartographic power is not limited to the borders of your own life. The blood beating in your veins today is the magnetic hard drive of all the humanity that preceded you. You carry encoded in your cellular iron the terrors, famines, and wars of your ancestors, but also their amazing capacity for resilience and survival. You are the biological bridge between the past and the future. By applying integrated healing technologies, purifying your plasma, and oxygenating your cells with pure intention, you are performing the ultimate work of cosmic redemption. You are stopping the transmission of ancestral trauma through your conscious presence. Epigenetics shows us that your victories over fear literally alter the expression of your genes. By healing your own inner topography, you are clearing the electromagnetic static of your lineage. You are writing a new code in your living water, a code of freedom, fluidity, and absolute order that future generations will inherit. Your personal healing is, ultimately, the most profound gift you can give to the web of life. You are raising the frequency of the entire human species, one heartbeat at a time. Every cell you illuminate contributes to the collective awakening of matter. You are a pioneer of a new, conscious biological reality on this planet. The final pulse, inhabiting yourself in fullness. The ultimate goal of understanding the sacred geometry of your circulatory system is not to accumulate biological data for the analytical mind, but to invite you to descend, finally, into the sacred temple of your own body. True spirituality is not an escape into the ether. It is total and absolute embodiment in matter. I invite you, at this precise moment, to close your eyes. Relax your jaw. Let the weight of your shoulders drop, and bring all your tactical and mental awareness to the exact center of your chest. Breathe deeply and slowly, allowing the air to enter in a spiral, inflating your lungs in all directions. Feel the internal expansion. Feel the pulse. Listen to that rhythmic, dull, and constant thumping. That heartbeat is not just the sound of a muscle working. It is the echo of the Big Bang resonating in your ribcage. It is the implosion engine that generates your toroidal electromagnetic field, connecting you magnetically with the heart of the Earth. It connects you with the infinite of the quantum field. Feel how, with each pulsation, millions of red blood cells are fired in a perfect vortex, transporting light, memory, and oxygen through the 100,000 kilometers of your fractal tree. Therein lies the majesty of your existence. Do not look beyond your own skin. You are the universe experiencing itself in high definition. The map is complete. The pathways are clear. Your matter is fully conscious. Surrender to absolute fluidity. Embrace the geometry of your divine design and walk through this world knowing that the greatest treasure of creation has always been alive in your blood.